The observer erases reality. Have you ever paused to consider that the very act of watching something might change what you see? That reality, as you know it, is not fixed or solid, but fluid and elusive, shifting with every glance, every thought, every moment your attention lingers. It sounds like the stuff of mystics or quantum physicists, yet it's one of the most profound mysteries at the heart of existence itself. When you look at a flower, it appears simple and still, but the flower isn't waiting quietly to be noticed. In the vast dance of atoms and light, your observation alters it, if only imperceptibly. And this is no mere metaphor. In the strange world of quantum mechanics, scientists have found that particles behave differently when observed. They collapse from possibilities into a single reality only the moment you measure them. Before that, they exist in a haze of probabilities, a cloud of potential realities waiting to be chosen. Imagine a tiny particle, smaller than anything you can see, spinning in infinite ways at once. It's both here and there, this and that, a quantum blur of existence. But as soon as a detector watches it, the particle decides on one position, one state, one identity. The observer effect, they call it. The act of observation collapses possibilities into a single reality. This shakes the very foundation of what we believe about the world. If reality depends on observation, what happens when no one is looking? Does the universe wait patiently in a fog of endless possibilities until a conscious mind appears to solidify it? Or is reality an ongoing performance, ever shifting with the watcher's gaze? And what of things unseen? Do they exist in some other form, or not at all? Let's stretch this from the quantum realm to our daily lives. Think about memory, the way your mind recalls events not as perfect recordings, but as stories rewritten every time you remember them. Memories shift with context, mood, even suggestion. The observer effect plays out in your mind. Your act of remembering changes the memory itself. In this way, your reality is altered not just by what you see, but how you see it and how you reflect upon it. This idea that the observer influences reality ripples through philosophy, psychology, and even spirituality. Some ancient traditions hint at it. The idea that our perception shapes the world around us, that by choosing what to see and believe, we create our own experience of reality. It's not just passive observation, but active participation. Consider the famous double-slit experiment in physics. A beam of electrons is fired at a barrier with two tiny slits. When unobserved, electrons create an interference pattern on a screen, as if each electron passes through both slits at once, behaving like a wave. But when scientists place detectors to see which slit each electron passes through, the interference pattern disappears. The electrons behave like particles, choosing a single path. The simple act of watching changes the outcome. This experiment has puzzled scientists for decades because it suggests a reality that's not fixed, but dependent on consciousness. It challenges the idea of an objective, observer-independent world. The universe seems participatory. You are not just a spectator, but a co-creator. Now, imagine scaling this concept up. What if human perception, not just scientific instruments, shapes the reality we share? When you look at a person and judge them, does your gaze alter their behavior, their essence? Social psychologists tell us that people often conform to the expectations others hold of them. The observer effect echoes here too. The very act of being observed or judged influences how we present ourselves, how we act, how we become. In a darker sense, it raises questions about surveillance and privacy. When under constant watch, do we lose our authentic selves, performing for the observer rather than living freely? The world becomes a stage, and we actors shaped by the gaze of others. But what of the things hidden, the corners untouched by observation? What remains unseen in this participatory universe? Are there layers of existence beyond human perception? Could these unseen realms hold truths we cannot grasp because our act of observing is itself a filter, a limitation? Philosophers like Berkeley proposed esse est percipi. To be is to be perceived. Existence depends on perception. Without a mind to see, does anything truly exist? This question has haunted thinkers for centuries, pointing to a universe where reality is not independent but relational, connected to consciousness itself. And yet, this idea is unsettling. It places responsibility on us, our attention, our awareness. We are not passive recipients, but active participants, shaping reality through observation. This means our fears, hopes, and beliefs ripple through the fabric of existence, influencing not only our inner world, but the outer world we inhabit. It invites a deeper mindfulness, to observe not just outward things, but our own inner reactions, biases, and judgments, knowing they participate in crafting the reality we experience. It asks us to be conscious creators, not unwitting reactors. Some spiritual paths echo this truth in practices of meditation and presence, where the observer within watches without judgment, witnessing the flow of thoughts and sensations. In this still witnessing, reality seems to soften, to shift. You glimpse the fluid nature of experience, the ephemeral dance of perception and being. Returning to science, even cosmology touches on this. The famous physicist John Wheeler coined the phrase participatory anthropic principle, suggesting that observers are necessary to bring the universe into being. The cosmos and consciousness are intertwined in a cosmic feedback loop. This calls into question our very sense of self and other. If the observer shapes reality, who is the observer? Is it a single fixed eye, or a fluid process, a field of awareness that flows through all things? When you watch a sunset, you are not separate from the light, the sky, the earth. You are part of the unfolding moment that is simultaneously observer and observed. So the next time you witness a moment, a person, a particle, remember, your gaze is not passive. It folds into the scene, changes its shape, alters its course. The observer erases a fixed reality to write a new one, and in that truth lies both wonder and responsibility. Because who watches you? And what reality do you help create with every glance, every thought, every breath? The answer is a journey inward and outward, an endless dance where nothing is certain and everything is alive. In the end, reality is not a static photograph, but a living painting, each observer adding brushstrokes, blending colors, shifting perspectives. The canvas is vast, the story unfolding not in isolation, but in the interplay of watchers and the watched, coexisting in the fragile balance between what is seen and what remains unseen. You, the observer, are both the question and the answer, the creator and the witness. And in that paradox, reality dissolves and emerges anew, endlessly rewritten by your very act of seeing. Memory builds the present. Memory is the thread that weaves the fabric of our present experience. It is the foundation upon which our sense of self, our identity, and the world around us are built. But what if that thread is not as sturdy as we believe? What if the memories we trust, those vivid snapshots of our past, are not faithful records, but fragile reconstructions, prone to error and distortion? If memory shapes the present, then a false memory is not merely a mistake of the past. It is a reweaving of reality itself. This idea unsettles us deeply because it suggests that what we think is real might be partly, or even mostly, a carefully constructed fiction. Our brains are not video cameras. They do not record events exactly as they unfold. Instead, memory is an active process, constantly edited and updated every time we recall it. When you remember something, you are not opening a perfectly preserved file. You are reconstructing a story, piecing together fragments influenced by your current feelings, beliefs, and knowledge. Over time, this reconstruction can drift further from what actually happened, influenced by suggestion, bias, or even simple forgetfulness. Consider the famous case of the lost in the mall experiment. Psychologists implanted false memories in people, convincing some that they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, even though this event never actually occurred. Over time, participants recalled detailed accounts of the fictional event. Emotions, sights, and sounds, all imagined but deeply convincing to their own minds. This experiment reveals that memories can be fabricated, and once believed, they can influence behavior and perception just as powerfully as real memories. But it's not only about false memories created in labs. Everyday life is full of examples where memory deceives us. Eyewitness testimony, once considered the gold standard in courts, is now known to be highly unreliable. People's memories of traumatic or dramatic events can be altered by stress, misinformation, or time, sometimes leading to wrongful convictions. The malleability of memory is a human vulnerability that carries profound consequences. Imagine waking up each day with a mind shaped by memories that aren't quite true. The way you interpret your relationships, your achievements, even your fears, each colored by remembered moments that may never have happened or happened differently. Your present decisions, your sense of who you are, rest upon this shifting ground. How much of your reality is real? How much is a reconstruction, a fiction you've unknowingly accepted as truth? Neuroscience sheds further light on this puzzle. Studies of brain activity reveal that the same regions light up whether we are experiencing something or simply imagining it. The lines between reality and memory blur neurologically, explaining why vivid memories can feel indistinguishable from actual experience. Furthermore, each recall alters the memory trace itself, sometimes strengthening inaccuracies. The more we remember, the more we reshape the story. This phenomenon extends to collective memory as well. Societies build their identities on shared histories, yet those histories are also constructed from imperfect memories, passed down orally, written by biased authors and reshaped by cultural narratives. The stories nations tell themselves are filtered through countless layers of recollection and interpretation. Thus, our collective present, the politics, the ideologies, the identities, is often built on an uncertain foundation. Yet, this fragility is not only a source of despair, but also a source of hope. If memory is reconstructive, it means that our present is malleable. We have the power to reshape our own narratives, to reinterpret past wounds, and to create new meanings. Therapy, for example, often relies on reframing memories to heal trauma. The mind's ability to reimagine the past opens the door to transformation. Consider the phenomenon of placebo effect, where belief changes physiology. A patient who believes in a treatment's efficacy can trigger real healing processes. This power of belief, rooted in memory and expectation, highlights how our internal constructions, though subjective, can tangibly affect our external reality. If memory shapes reality, then changing the memory can change the life. The paradox is that the foundation of your present moment, your memory, is both your greatest asset and your greatest vulnerability. It is the architect of your experience, yet it is fallible, prone to invention and error. Understanding this paradox invites humility and curiosity. It encourages us to question what we think we know about ourselves and the world. If your memories can be false, if your present is partly fiction, what then is the nature of truth? Is there an objective reality, or is reality always filtered through the lens of perception and memory? Philosophers have wrestled with this question for centuries. Phenomenologists argue that all we ever experience is the world as it appears to us, already mediated by mind and memory. The thing in itself remains forever elusive. Even science, the pursuit of objective knowledge, relies on human memory, observation, recording, and interpretation. The awareness of memory's limits reminds us that our understanding of the universe is always provisional, evolving, and imperfect. It calls us to embrace uncertainty and to be open to revising our views as new evidence emerges. At the heart of this reflection lies a deeply human tension, the desire for certainty, continuity, and identity versus the reality of change, impermanence, and fallibility. Memory promises a coherent self, a continuous story from past to present, but that story is always being rewritten. You are not a fixed point in time, but a dynamic narrative in motion. In this light, memory is less a mirror reflecting reality and more a canvas where we paint our experience. Some strokes are true, others imagined, yet together they create the picture we live within. Recognizing this empowers you to take an active role in shaping your inner world. So, as you listen to your memories today, remember their power and their limits. Question the certainty with which you hold your past, and consider the freedom that comes from knowing it can be changed. Your present is built by memory, but memory is not a prison. It is a tool that you can wield to transform your reality, to heal old wounds, and to imagine new futures. Because in the end, what you live is not just what happened, but what you remember happened. And in that remembering, you find both the challenge and the magic of being human. Your body isn't you. What does it mean to be yourself? When you look in the mirror, you see a body, flesh, bone, skin, hair, eyes. But is that body truly you? Or is it merely the vessel that carries something deeper? Consider this. People can lose limbs, replace faces, even swap organs. And yet, we still say, that is me. But if so much of the physical form can change, then what part of the body was ever truly yours? This question cuts at the heart of identity itself. Imagine a soldier returning from battle, missing an arm. or a person who has undergone face transplantation, waking to see a different face staring back. They are still the same person. The memories, the thoughts, the personality persist despite the altered physical form. So, how much of what we call me is really tied to the body? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. The ship of Theseus paradox asks, if you replace every plank of a ship, is it still the same ship? Replace one part at a time until nothing original remains. At which point does the ship become a different ship? This is the puzzle of bodily continuity. Our bodies themselves are in constant flux. Every 7 years, it's said, nearly every cell in the human body is replaced. The atoms you were born with have long since departed, replaced by new ones from the air you breathe, the food you eat. You are not a static statue carved from marble, but a flowing river of matter, energy, and change. If the body isn't a fixed thing, then what is the self that we cling to? Science offers a clue: the brain. Your thoughts, your memories, your sense of being, all reside here, within the complex folds of neurons and synapses. Yet, even the brain is plastic, ever-changing in response to experience. After severe injury, the brain can rewire itself, reassign functions, and adapt. But beyond the physical brain, your conscious experience, the feeling that you are you, cannot be located precisely anywhere. It is a phenomenon emerging from patterns, processes, and interactions. Now consider the famous case of Phineas Gage, a 19th century railroad worker who survived a horrific accident when an iron rod pierced through his skull, destroying much of his frontal lobe. Before the accident, he was described as dependable and calm. After, he became impulsive and aggressive. The injury altered his personality dramatically, revealing how closely the physical brain relates to identity. Yet, even Gage, with a shattered skull, was still himself in the fundamental sense. Friends recognized him. He remembered his past. This blurred boundary between body and self challenges the idea that the physical form is the whole story. Or take the experience of amputees who develop phantom limb syndrome, feeling sensations, sometimes pain, from limbs that no longer exist. Their brains still map the missing arm or leg, sending signals and creating the perception of presence where there is none. This shows that the self's experience is not limited by the body's physical boundaries. In more recent times, face transplantation has pushed this boundary even further. Patients receive entirely new faces, skin, muscle, bone, from donors surgically connected to their own bodies. Post-operation, they must relearn to smile, speak, and express emotion through a foreign visage. Yet their personality, memories, and sense of self remain intact. The face, often seen as the identity's visual signature, can be replaced without erasing the person beneath. What about identity beyond the body? In some spiritual and philosophical traditions, the self is viewed as an essence or soul that exists independently of flesh and bone. Even modern neuroscience entertains the idea that consciousness might not be reducible to mere matter. But even without invoking the soul, the undeniable fact is that the body is a mutable container, not the core self. Take another example: organ transplantation. When people receive a heart, a liver, or lungs from a donor, they retain their identity, their memories, and their personality. The donor's physical matter integrates with the recipient's body, yet the self persists. Some recipients even report feeling changes in temperament or preferences, though this remains controversial. But what is clear is that identity is not stored in the donor organs themselves. Advances in technology push this boundary even further. Prosthetics can now be controlled by thought, connected to the nervous system, and provide sensory feedback. A person with a bionic arm can feel touch and pressure through an artificial limb. Their brain adapts, incorporating this new part into their body schema. This phenomenon reveals how flexible the self is in accepting physical change. It also raises questions. If a synthetic limb becomes part of you, what else can be integrated before the body ceases to be the true you? Looking to the future, brain-machine interfaces may enable humans to upload memories or consciousness to digital environments, transcending the physical entirely. If your mind could be copied into a computer, would that digital copy still be you? And if so, what role would the body play? All of this points to a radical conclusion. The body is not the self. It is a constantly changing, replaceable frame that houses the experience of being alive. The you that experiences the world is the continuity of consciousness, the ever-flowing stream of thought, memory, and awareness that persists through bodily change. But why is this understanding important? Because it frees us from the illusion that identity depends on the physical form. When illness, injury, or aging alter the body, the core self remains resilient. This perspective can bring profound comfort and transformation, especially when facing loss. It also challenges our assumptions about what it means to be human. If identity is fluid, not fixed by appearance or form, then the boundaries we draw around normal bodies or identities become arbitrary. This has powerful implications for how we treat others and ourselves, with greater compassion, acceptance, and understanding. So, the next time you catch your reflection, remember, that face, those hands, that body, none of it defines the real you. You are something far more elusive, mysterious, and enduring. Your essence is the living thread that weaves through time, space, and change. Your body isn't you. You are the consciousness that experiences, perceives, and transcends the physical. In the end, the question, who am I, is less about the shape of flesh and more about the eternal dance of awareness itself. Your body is a temporary garment, worn for a time and then replaced, but the self, the witness to all change, remains. Time moves without motion. Time is often described as a river flowing steadily, carrying us from one moment to the next. We measure it by clocks, calendars, and the ticking of seconds. Yet, when we stop to truly think about what time is, a paradox emerges. Time moves without motion. The past is fixed in memory, the future a realm of possibility, and the present, the elusive now, seems to slip through our fingers like sand. How can time pass when nothing is actually moving? How can we say that now is real when our minds can jump backward and forward without physically moving at all? Imagine this. You are sitting still, perhaps in a quiet room. Your body is motionless, your eyes fixed on a single point. Yet, your mind wanders freely. In an instant, you recall a memory from years ago, a childhood birthday, a long-lost friend, a moment of triumph or pain. Suddenly you are there again, reliving the event in vivid detail. Then, just as quickly, your thoughts jump forward to a future event, a planned vacation, an upcoming challenge, or a dream yet to be realized. You feel the emotions, the excitement, or the dread of what might come. All this mental time travel happens without a single step, without a change in your physical position. You travel through time, but not through space. This is the essence of the paradox. Time moves, but motion is not necessary for it to do so. Our conscious experience of time is not tied to the movement of our bodies or the objects around us. Instead, time is a construct of the mind, a framework within which we organize experiences, memories, and expectations. The past and the future are not places we physically visit. They exist as ideas, as mental states. The now is fleeting precisely because it is the ever-changing boundary between what we remember and what we anticipate. Philosophers and scientists have long grappled with the nature of time. Ancient thinkers like Heraclitus famously said, "You cannot step into the same river twice," highlighting the continuous flow of time and change. Yet, what flows if nothing moves? Modern physics complicates the picture further. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time is not absolute. It is relative, affected by speed and gravity. Time can dilate or contract depending on how fast you move or how close you are to a massive object. But even with these insights, time remains intangible, without a physical form or movement that we can grasp. Consider the way we perceive time in our daily lives. When engaged deeply in a task, time seems to fly by. Minutes pass unnoticed, yet, in moments of boredom or pain, seconds stretch endlessly. This subjective experience reveals how malleable time is in our consciousness. Our minds construct the flow of time as much as clocks measure it. When you imagine a future goal, you bring it closer, almost making it present. When you dwell on a past failure, you replay it as if it were happening now. In these mental jumps, the now is bypassed, as if time is skipping. Neuroscience offers some clues. Our brain processes memories and anticipations through complex neural networks. The hippocampus, for instance, is vital for forming memories and imagining future scenarios. Studies show that the same brain regions activate when recalling the past and imagining the future, suggesting that these processes are intertwined. The mind creates a continuous narrative, stitching together fragments of time into a seamless experience. But this narrative is not reality itself. It is a story we tell ourselves. The idea that time moves without motion challenges our everyday assumptions. We think of movement as the passage of time, clocks ticking, hands moving, shadows shifting. Yet, all these are markers, not the essence of time. They are external signs of change, but time itself is an abstract dimension. It is not the motion of objects, but the progression of events and experiences. This concept also touches on the experience of meditation and mindfulness. In deep meditation, practitioners often report a sense of timelessness, a state where the usual flow of past, present, and future dissolves. The mind rests in pure awareness, not anchored to any moment. In this state, the now expands infinitely, paradoxically existing beyond time's usual boundaries. It is an experience that reveals the mind's role in shaping time. Even language struggles to capture this fluidity. We say, "I am now," but the moment of saying it is gone the instant it is formed. The now is always slipping ahead, disappearing before we can grasp it. Our thoughts about the past and future are static snapshots, frozen in the mind. But the present is a moving target, always ahead of our awareness. In literature and art, this paradox has inspired countless explorations. Time travel stories play with the idea of jumping across moments without moving physically. Poets describe moments suspended in time, where emotion holds the present still. Music stretches and compresses time, creating illusions of movement without physical displacement. So, how real is the now, if the mind can skip it? The answer depends on perspective. Physically, the now is a point on the timeline where events occur, but mentally, it is a fragile construct, constantly overtaken by memory and anticipation. Our awareness lingers on past regrets or future hopes, often neglecting the immediate present. Yet, the present is the only moment where life truly happens. To live fully is to anchor oneself in the now, even though it is elusive. To recognize that while the mind can wander through time, the body experiences moments one breath at a time. The paradox of time moving without motion invites us to question our assumptions, to see time not as a river to be crossed, but as a space created by the mind's dance with memory and expectation. In the end, time's movement without motion is a mystery that blends physics, philosophy, and psychology. It reveals how deeply entwined our sense of self is with the passage of time. We live not just in a world of moving objects, but in a world shaped by how we perceive and imagine time itself. The now is both real and unreal, always present yet slipping beyond reach. And so, as you listen to these words, remember this. Your mind can travel to the past and future, but your true life unfolds only in the fleeting instant of now. Hold on to that moment, for it is the heartbeat of existence, the silent motion of time moving without motion. The self is self-made. If we sit still and ask ourselves, who am I? What do we find? Most people rush to say, I am who I am. But what does that really mean? Is there some pure, untouched self inside us that exists independently of everything else? Or are we something else entirely? A product, a mosaic, a shifting reflection of the world around us? From the moment we open our eyes, we are shaped, molded, and transformed. The self is not a fixed statue carved in marble, but more like clay in the hands of experience, environment, and interaction. Think about the first time you felt judged, praised, or rejected. Those moments leave marks. They whisper to your identity, rewriting your sense of who you are, what you can be, and even how you see yourself. Our personality, that seemingly solid core we call me, is actually a living story told by countless small forces around us. When a child grows up in a quiet, loving home, they become a different person from one raised in chaos or harsh judgment. Their responses, fears, and joys form like cracks and patterns in the clay of their being. But if this personality can shift so easily, so deeply, then what truly belongs to us? Where is the real you before the world sculpts and reshapes you? Let's dig deeper. Imagine a mirror. A mirror reflects everything it sees, bending light and colors to present an image. But the mirror itself doesn't hold a fixed identity. It's a surface designed to reflect. What if you too are a mirror, shaped by every glance, every voice, every encounter? If that's true, then the self is never truly alone, never fully independent. It is the sum of all reflections, the echoes of others' gazes and words. Even the language we use to define ourselves comes from outside. We call ourselves kind, shy, brave, or lost. But those labels are born from how others react to us. A person labeled shy may have once been a curious soul who retreated only because the world seemed hostile. Or someone called brave might have learned that mask to survive harsh judgment. We absorb these identities like water in a sponge, often unaware of how deeply they seep into our core. Look at social media today, a modern mirror more complex than ever. A single post can shape how thousands perceive us, and in turn, how we perceive ourselves. Likes, comments, and shares become tiny chisel strokes on our self-image. We learn to edit, adapt, and sometimes lose pieces of ourselves just to fit the image others expect. It's a powerful reminder that the self is a fluid concept, shaped and reshaped in real time. But is there any core beneath this constant flux? Some philosophers argue for a true self, hidden beneath all layers. Yet, when we try to grasp it, it slips away like smoke. Neuroscience shows our brain is a web of ever-changing connections. No permanent you inside a fixed brain box. Psychology reveals how malleable our identity is, how memory, trauma, and environment rewrite the script of self continuously. Let's explore some examples. Take the story of someone who moves to a new country with a different language, culture, and social norms. Within months, they may find themselves acting differently, adopting new habits, new ways of speaking, even new values. Is this a betrayal of their original self, or simply the self evolving? Another example. Think of how a shy teenager can transform into a confident adult, or how trauma can shift a person's personality entirely. These changes challenge the idea of a stable, pre-existing self. There's also the power of feedback loops. When people treat us a certain way, we respond by reinforcing those behaviors. If someone is constantly told they are unworthy, they may internalize that and behave accordingly, creating a cycle. This shows how deeply the environment and others shape the self, often without conscious awareness. Yet, this does not mean the self is powerless or lost. Rather, it suggests the self is dynamic, a dance between internal impulses and external influence. We are not blank slates, but neither are we statues. We have the capacity to choose which influences to accept, which to reject, and which to transform. This interplay is the essence of human growth. Some spiritual traditions call this self-realization, peeling away the layers of conditioning to find the spark beneath. But even that spark may be less a static essence, and more a process of becoming. The self is a story continuously written and rewritten, a journey without a fixed destination. So, who is the real you before the world sculpted you? Maybe the question itself needs reframing. Instead of seeking a pre-sculpted self, what if the self is the sculpture in motion, the living art shaped by the world, but also shaping the world in return? This perspective can feel unsettling because it challenges our instinct to hold on to a stable identity. But it can also be liberating, inviting us to become active creators of ourselves, not just passive reflections. In the end, the self is both made and maker, crafted by the hands of experience, yes, but also reaching out to mold those hands. Understanding this dual nature can deepen our empathy for ourselves and others, reminding us that everyone is a work in progress, a story still unfolding. This is why the journey of self-discovery is not about finding a hidden, fixed core, but about embracing change, understanding influence, and learning to shape the self consciously. It's a dance between who we were, who we are, and who we might become. So next time you wonder, who am I really? Remember, you are not a finished statue, but a living sculpture, formed by the world but alive to shape it back. This dance is the essence of human existence, the mystery and the miracle of the self, made and remade. And as you move through life, every encounter, every word, every silence leaves its mark. Sometimes subtle, sometimes profound. The self is a story told in moments, shaped by the world, yet never fully defined by it. It is the ever-changing reflection in the mirror of life, the clay in the hands of experience, the endless work of art that is you. Thoughts without a thinker. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, Who exactly is behind your thoughts? When a thought suddenly appears, uninvited, without warning, who is it that thinks it? We often assume that we are the authors of every idea, every judgment, every fleeting emotion racing through our minds. But what if that assumption is an illusion? What if, instead, we are simply the stage where thoughts perform, not the playwright scripting the drama? The experience of thought feels so immediate and personal, as if a voice inside us, uniquely ours, is directing the inner conversation. Yet, upon closer inspection, many of these thoughts seem to arrive spontaneously, like waves rising from a mysterious ocean beneath awareness. They come and go, often without our conscious consent or control. Sometimes they surprise us, disturb us, even frighten us. This raises a profound question. If thoughts arise involuntarily, then who is the thinker? Are you truly the originator, or merely the audience, watching a script that plays itself? Philosophers and mystics across time have wrestled with this enigma. In certain spiritual traditions, this is known as the witness or the observer, a silent presence that watches thoughts arise and fade, unchanging and detached. Neuroscience, too, hints at this separation between the self and mental activity. Brain imaging reveals that many thoughts are triggered by subconscious processes before we even become aware of them. The conscious I is often catching up, interpreting and reacting, rather than creating from a center of control. Consider this simple example. You might suddenly recall a childhood memory, a forgotten name, or an image from a dream. It pops into your mind unbidden. You didn't will it. It wasn't summoned by any deliberate effort. It just appeared, as if handed to you by an unseen force. Who then is handing it? Who receives it? Even the so-called voice in your head that narrates your day, the inner monologue, is not a fixed, autonomous entity. It is a flowing current of impressions, sometimes coherent, sometimes chaotic, never truly under direct command. Try this. Close your eyes and wait for the next thought to come. Notice how it arrives, how it doesn't seem to belong to anyone, how it dances freely without your permission. You are not the puppeteer pulling the strings. You are the stage on which the play unfolds. This realization can be both liberating and unsettling. Liberating because it frees you from the illusion of constant mental control, the exhausting burden of trying to command every thought and feeling. It invites you to become the witness, to observe your mind without judgment or attachment, to recognize that thoughts are like clouds passing through a vast open sky, the sky being your true self, vast and unchanged, but unsettling because it challenges the core of identity. If you are not the thinker, then who are you? What remains if the voice inside is not truly yours? Is there an I behind the curtain, or just the curtain itself? Many spiritual paths answer this by pointing toward pure awareness, an unchanging presence that underlies the flickering patterns of mind. This presence is not involved in the content of thoughts. It simply observes. It does not invent the story, but knows the story as it unfolds. It is the silent witness, the timeless space in which thought arises and disappears. The famous Buddhist teacher Nisargadatta Maharaj once said, "You are not the thinker, you are the awareness in which thinking happens." This subtle shift changes everything. It reveals that the self we cling to, the self that believes it must always be in charge, is actually a construct made up of transient thoughts, emotions, and sensations. To illustrate this further, imagine a movie theater. The screen displays an endless series of images, characters, scenes, drama, and conflict. You sit watching, fully immersed. But you are not the film. You are the audience. The flickering pictures are not you. They come and go. The deeper you recognize that, the more peace you find, because the turbulence of the movie no longer defines your experience. In modern psychology, similar ideas emerge in the concept of cognitive diffusion from acceptance and commitment therapy. It encourages us to observe thoughts as events in the mind, not literal truths or commands. When you step back and watch thoughts as passing phenomena, their power over you diminishes. You realize you are not trapped in your mind, but can choose how to respond. Yet the question lingers. How does this process begin? How do thoughts arise in the first place? Neuroscience suggests the brain is constantly generating predictions, memories, and sensations in a vast automatic flow. Thoughts emerge from the interactions of neurons firing, a biochemical dance beneath conscious awareness. Your brain does not wait for permission. It creates continuously. The self is a narrative woven afterward, a storyteller making sense of the chaos. This insight invites humility. It reminds us that the mind is not a master, but a process, and you, the observer, are not the controller, but the space in which control plays out. This does not mean you are powerless. Rather, it means that by becoming aware of this distinction, you can cultivate freedom, a freedom from being identified with every passing thought, every fleeting impulse. Practice this awareness. When a thought arises, whether anxious, joyful, critical, or mundane, notice it without judgment. Observe it as if watching a leaf floating on a river. It moves, shifts, and eventually drifts away. You remain steady, unshaken, the silent space through which experience flows. This is the paradox of thoughts without a thinker. The thoughts arise, but the thinker, the you that you truly are, is not what you assumed. It is something deeper, more vast, more serene. In this truth lies profound peace, because if you are not the constant chatter of the mind, then you are free. Free to witness without attachment, free to live beyond the scripts that the brain writes, free to be the awareness that is always present beneath the surface of thought. And so, next time a thought emerges uninvited, remember, it is not a command, not a declaration of your identity. It is a passing event, a visitor to the vastness of your awareness. And you, the silent observer, are always here, unchanged, unshaken, limitless. Dreams that feel truer. Have you ever woken from a dream so vivid, so intense, that it lingered in your mind long after you opened your eyes? A dream where every color, every texture, every sound felt more alive than anything you experience when awake. That strange sensation, that piercing clarity, raises a profound question. If dreams can feel truer than waking life, then who is to say which is the lesser dream? We live each day assuming that waking reality is the solid, unquestionable foundation beneath our feet. It's the world we navigate with our senses, the place where cause and effect seem certain, where memories feel anchored, and where our bodies respond to gravity and pain. Yet, dreams challenge this notion. In dreams, time can warp, space can bend, and impossible things become commonplace. Sometimes, the emotional intensity in dreams surpasses anything we feel awake. The love, fear, or joy in a dream can be more raw, more real, more undeniable. Philosophers and mystics have wrestled with this puzzle for millennia. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato imagined the world we see as mere shadows on a cave wall, a pale imitation of true reality. Buddhist teachings describe waking life itself as Maya, illusion. Even modern science acknowledges that the brain creates the reality we experience, an elaborate construction from electrical impulses, sensory inputs, and neural patterns. What we call real is a story told by the brain, a coherent narrative stitched together to help us survive. So what if waking life is just another layer of dream? What if it is the lesser, less vivid dream, and the dream world is a higher reality? This idea is not just philosophical speculation. It resonates deeply with human experience. In dreams, you can meet loved ones who have passed, experience places you have never been, or gain insights that seem to transcend everyday logic. These moments often feel like glimpses into a larger truth. Consider lucid dreaming, the practice of becoming aware within a dream and sometimes controlling its flow. Lucid dreamers report a heightened sense of clarity, awareness, and freedom. Within these altered states, the boundaries between self and world blur. You realize that the dream is both a creation and a reality you inhabit simultaneously. This paradox challenges the hard lines we draw between sleep and wakefulness, illusion and truth. Neuroscience shows us that brain activity during REM sleep, the stage when vivid dreaming occurs, can mirror or even surpass the intensity of waking experiences. Sensory areas fire, emotions surge, and the sense of self can fragment or expand. Our waking brain constructs a reality to keep us grounded. The dreaming brain constructs a reality that defies rules. Both are creative acts. Both are real in their own right. The blurring of dreams and reality also touches on memory and identity. Sometimes, dreams implant memories so deeply that we struggle to distinguish them from real events. This overlap can shape how we see ourselves and our past. When dreams feel more real than waking life, it reveals how malleable our sense of what is true can be. Artists, writers, and visionaries have long tapped into the power of dreams to unlock creativity and deeper understanding. Dreams offer a realm where logic loosens, symbolism blooms, and hidden parts of the psyche emerge. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, a shared dreamscape where archetypes and universal truths live. In this view, dreams are not random noise, but messages from a deeper layer of reality. Yet, this perspective invites unsettling questions. If waking life is a dream, then who or what is dreaming it? Are we trapped in endless cycles of illusion, or is there a greater consciousness weaving these layers together? Many spiritual traditions speak of awakening, not just from sleep, but from the dream of ordinary reality. To awaken is to pierce the veil of illusion and glimpse the boundless, unchanging essence beneath. Modern technology adds new twists. Virtual reality, simulations, and artificial intelligence bring us closer to worlds indistinguishable from the real one. If we can simulate reality so perfectly that it feels true, how do we define what is real at all? Are we living inside a simulation, a cosmic dream, or something else entirely? Ultimately, the question, which is the lesser dream, challenges us to rethink our assumptions about existence. It calls us to embrace mystery and uncertainty, to recognize that reality may be far more fluid and layered than we imagine. It asks us to honor the richness of both waking life and dreams, seeing them as intertwined parts of a vast tapestry. As you reflect on your own dreams tonight, consider their power, not just as fleeting fantasies, but as portals to realms as meaningful as the one you call reality. When a dream feels truer than waking life, it is inviting you to question, to explore, and to awaken. Because perhaps the greatest mystery of all is this, that the line between dream and waking is not a boundary, but a bridge, connecting different aspects of our being and pointing toward a deeper, ineffable truth beyond both. The world depends on you. If your senses define your world, and senses are easily fooled, does the universe exist when you're unconscious? This question might feel like a philosophical riddle or a late-night thought spiraling into the depths of your mind. Yet, it cuts to the very core of what reality means. What if the vast cosmos, with its galaxies, stars, and infinite mysteries, only truly exists when it is perceived? When you close your eyes, fall asleep, or lose consciousness, does the universe vanish? Or does it persist, silently beyond your experience? Our understanding of the world is built almost entirely on sensory input. Sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell filter the chaos of existence into something coherent and meaningful. When you see a tree, hear a bird, feel the wind on your skin, your brain stitches together these signals into a seamless reality. But what if those signals are deceptive? Optical illusions, hallucinations, dreams, all reveal that our senses can be tricked, manipulated, or entirely fabricated. Philosophers and scientists alike have pondered whether reality is independent of observation. The ancient question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound, illustrates this. Sound, as we understand it, is a sensation created by vibrations hitting an eardrum and processed by the brain. Without a perceiver, those vibrations exist. But is there sound? Is there a world without witnesses? Quantum mechanics brings this puzzle into sharp focus. Experiments show that the act of observation affects the state of tiny particles. The famous double-slit experiment reveals that particles behave differently when they are watched. This suggests that observation is not passive, but active, shaping reality itself. But what counts as an observer? Must it be a conscious being? Can reality exist independently from perception? When you fall asleep, your conscious awareness fades, slipping away into darkness. Are the stars still shining? Is the universe still unfolding? On one hand, physics tells us the cosmos marches on, indifferent to your presence. Yet, on the other hand, your lived experience ceases. For you, in that moment, the universe shrinks to nothing. It's as if your personal reality is suspended until consciousness returns. Consider dreams. Entire worlds crafted by your mind, vivid, immersive, yet entirely contained within your brain's activity. In dreams, the senses conjure realities without external stimuli. If those experiences are real to the dreamer, what distinguishes dream from waking reality? Does the universe inside your mind during sleep have existence equal to the physical universe outside? Philosophers like George Berkeley argued for idealism, the notion that existence depends on being perceived. To Berkeley, to be is to be perceived. If the universe depended solely on your senses, then, without your observation, it might dissolve into nothingness. But is that truly the case? Most would argue there is a reality beyond us, persistent and enduring, whether we witness it or not. Yet how can we prove that? Our only access to reality is through perception. Without senses, how do we know anything exists at all? This paradox shakes the foundations of knowledge and belief. Maybe the universe's existence is a shared hallucination, an interplay of countless consciousnesses weaving a collective tapestry of existence. Science fiction explores these ideas through simulations and virtual realities. If your mind is trapped inside a perfect illusion, indistinguishable from waking life, does the world out there matter? Are you just a program running inside a machine? And if the senses are fooled, can you trust anything to be real? The answer may lie in the intersection of consciousness and existence. Consciousness, the mysterious, subjective awareness of self and surroundings, seems to be the anchor of reality. Without it, there is no experience. Without experience, does anything truly exist? But consciousness itself remains deeply enigmatic. Neuroscience can map brain activity but cannot fully explain the feeling of I am. This subjective self is the lens through which all reality passes, and when that lens closes, the world may flicker out, at least from your perspective. So what does this mean for your place in the universe? If the world depends on you, not just physically but perceptually, then your awareness carries a weight far beyond your waking hours. You are not merely a passive observer, but an active participant in the dance of existence. This perspective invites a profound responsibility. Your consciousness shapes reality. Your thoughts, perceptions, and presence give meaning and form to the universe you inhabit. When you wake, the world springs back into being, bursting with color, sound, and life, because you are there to perceive it. In a way, the universe needs you as much as you need it. It is not just a vast, impersonal machine, but a co-creation between matter and mind, between the seen and the seer. Next time you drift into sleep, consider this. Does the cosmos pause with your breath? Or does it whisper secrets in the dark, awaiting your return? The question itself may be unanswerable, yet it reveals a stunning truth. The world depends on you, on your senses, on your consciousness to exist in the way you know it. And in that realization, you become not just a tiny speck in the vastness, but a vital thread woven into the fabric of reality itself. Identity rewrites itself constantly. If who you are today disagrees with who you were last year, which version was the real one, or are none of them real? This question strikes at the heart of identity and its fluid nature. We often think of ourselves as fixed, stable beings, solid characters in our own life stories, but the truth is far more complex and unsettling. Identity is not a single unchanging thing. It is a constant rewrite, a narrative edited and reshaped with every experience, choice, and reflection. Think about the person you were a year ago. Your thoughts, feelings, values, and beliefs then may be markedly different from those you hold now. You may have changed your career, shifted your worldview, and altered relationships or transformed habits. These changes are not superficial. They reflect a core evolution of who you are. Yet, that version of you, last year's you, still existed fully in its time and reality. It was authentic then, just as your present self is authentic now. So, which one is real? The answer might surprise you. Both are real, and yet neither is absolutely real in isolation. Identity is not a fixed point, but a dynamic process. It is like a river, always flowing, never the same water twice. You cannot step into the same river twice, and likewise, you cannot inhabit the exact same self across time. Psychologically, this rewriting happens because our brains constantly update our self-image based on new information, emotions, and contexts. Memories are not perfect recordings, but malleable reconstructions. When we recall past versions of ourselves, we do so through the lens of who we are now. This means that even our perception of the past self is rewritten each time we remember it, blending truth with reinterpretation. Philosophers have wrestled with this fluidity for centuries. John Locke argued that personal identity is tied to memory continuity, who you remember being. But if memory is unreliable and subject to change, what anchors identity? Others suggest identity is a narrative we create, a story we tell ourselves and others to make sense of our existence. This story evolves, sometimes dramatically, reflecting growth, trauma, or transformation. This leads to a profound paradox. If identity constantly rewrites itself, is there an essential you beneath all these versions? Or are we simply a series of selves, linked by stories and memories, each as real and yet as ephemeral as the last? Neuroscience suggests that the brain's networks responsible for self-awareness and identity are plastic, shaped by experience and environment. Our sense of self is not a static object, but a living, shifting phenomenon. Consider everyday life. When you look in the mirror, the face staring back is familiar yet subtly changed from years ago. The person in the photo album is a stranger and a relative, simultaneously distant and connected. Your dreams, fears, and ambitions morph with time. What was true last year may feel alien today. Your tastes, beliefs, even your sense of morality can pivot, reflecting the ongoing rewrite of identity. This rewriting is not just internal, but social. Identity is co-constructed through relationships and culture. The roles you play, friend, worker, parent, shape and reshape your self-concept. Feedback from others acts as a mirror, influencing which version of yourself is foregrounded. Sometimes, external pressures force abrupt rewrites, as when trauma or crisis shatter former identities and compel new ones to emerge. The fluidity of identity can be disorienting, even frightening. It challenges the comforting notion of a stable, coherent self, but it also opens the possibility for growth and reinvention. If identity is not fixed, you have the freedom to change, to shed old versions and create new ones. This ongoing rewriting is a testament to human adaptability and resilience. In literature and art, the theme of shifting identity recurs endlessly. Characters reinvent themselves, personas mask inner truths, and stories unfold in fractured timelines. These explorations mirror the complexity of real life, where identity is never singular or static. Ultimately, the question of which version of you is real dissolves into a deeper understanding. Identity is a fluid mosaic, built from countless moments, memories, and interactions. Each version, past and present, is real in its context, but incomplete alone. The self is not a fixed entity, but an ongoing process of becoming. So, when your present self conflicts with your past self, don't seek a single true version. Instead, embrace the paradox that you are many selves woven into one life. The constant rewriting of identity is not a loss, but a vital, living truth, one that reflects the complexity of human existence itself. The simulation self-loop. If you could be trapped inside a simulation without knowing it, then the very tools you use to prove your reality might be part of that simulated trap. Imagine waking up one day to realize that everything you see, touch, and think is not real in the way you assumed, but a carefully constructed illusion, an elaborate digital dream coded to feel as authentic as life itself. The question then becomes, how can you ever be sure of anything? Every proof, every piece of evidence you gather to confirm your existence, could itself be a line of code, a scripted response designed to keep you convinced you are free. This is the essence of the simulation self-loop, a paradox that loops back on itself so tightly it can never be broken from inside. If your senses, your memories, and even your reason are programmed within the simulation, then every argument you make for your reality is already anticipated and built into the system. When you look for truth, you find exactly what the simulation wants you to find. If you doubt, that doubt too is part of the design, a coded feature meant to keep you engaged within the illusion. Think about the tools of science and logic, the very methods humans use to uncover objective truth. In a simulation, these tools might be nothing more than simulated processes, carefully arranged to generate convincing results. For example, when you test physical laws or observe phenomena, what if the outcomes are pre-written scripts running seamlessly behind the scenes? What if your experiments, your measurements, your entire understanding of physics, chemistry, and consciousness are predetermined lines of code, designed to feel authentic, but ultimately designed to maintain the illusion? This leads to a terrifying and fascinating question. Can you ever break free from the simulation if all your thoughts and proofs are part of it? Or is the simulation designed so perfectly that even the idea of escape or awakening is a programmed loop, part of the grand narrative? The simulation self-loop suggests that any attempt to prove reality is already accounted for, an infinite recursion where evidence feeds on itself but never escapes. This concept echoes ancient philosophical puzzles like Descartes' I think, therefore I am, which tries to establish certainty through self-awareness. But in a simulation, even self-awareness could be a program. Your consciousness might be an artificial construct running inside a system that can simulate doubt, belief, and introspection. The I you trust as real might be just another piece of code interacting within the framework. Examples from popular culture like The Matrix give us a glimpse of this unsettling possibility, a world where perceived reality is a fabricated prison. But the simulation self-loop is even more insidious because it implies that no matter how hard you try to distinguish illusion from reality, the very act of trying is predicted and integrated into the simulation's architecture. If we imagine layers of simulations nested within each other, the problem becomes recursive beyond comprehension. How do you know you're not inside the innermost loop, where each proof, each thought, each sensation is yet another layer of code designed to fool you? This infinite regression shatters the foundation of certainty and forces us to reconsider what it means to know anything at all. Yet, despite this paradox, life still feels real to us. Our emotions, choices, and experiences feel vivid, profound, and meaningful. Does it matter if this reality is simulated or not? Could it be that the very experience of living, joy, sorrow, love, fear, is what defines reality for us, simulation or no simulation? Perhaps the self-loop is not a trap, but a challenge, urging us to embrace uncertainty, to live fully despite not knowing the ultimate truth. In the end, the simulation self-loop asks us to question everything, our perceptions, our beliefs, even our existence, but it also invites us to find meaning within the mystery. If the proof of our reality is a code designed to trap us, then maybe the true freedom lies in accepting the unknown and creating our own reality within the simulation's endless labyrinth. So, are you inside a simulation? If so, remember, every proof you use might just be code designed to keep you trapped, and yet, even in that trap, you can find purpose, awareness, and a self that strives to understand beyond the loop itself. The thought that thinks. If you pause right now and turn your attention inward, you might notice something extraordinary, your own awareness. Not just the thoughts swirling through your mind, but the very presence that observes those thoughts. You know that you are aware, that there is a watcher inside, silently witnessing the dance of sensations, memories, and ideas. But then a question emerges, subtle and profound. If you are aware of your awareness, then who is aware of the one who's aware? This is a riddle as old as philosophy itself. The awareness that sees itself seeing, the observer who watches the watcher. It is a paradox that pushes the boundaries of understanding and invites you to look beyond the surface of experience. Think of awareness as a mirror reflecting everything, your thoughts, emotions, the world outside. The mirror is clear, unblemished, and it holds all reflections without judgment. When you become aware of your awareness, it's as if the mirror has turned back on itself, catching its own image. But mirrors cannot reflect themselves infinitely without some strange loop or breakdown. So what is this awareness that knows itself? Is it a deeper presence, a fundamental I beyond mind and body? Philosophers have called this the reflexive nature of consciousness, the mind's ability not only to think, but to think about thinking. The experience of, I know that I know. But here's the twist. Every time you try to pin down the one who's aware, it slips away like trying to catch your own shadow. Imagine you look into your own eyes in a mirror. You see your face, your gaze. But what happens when you try to see the one looking back? The eyes meet, yet there is no separate entity to grasp, only a presence, a vast openness. It is both subject and object, knower and known. Some traditions say this is the very essence of self, pure consciousness that is self-referential, without beginning or end. It's like an endless echo inside a cathedral of thought, a presence that knows itself endlessly. But why does this matter? Because it challenges the assumption that you are a fixed, separate individual controlling your mind and body. Instead, it suggests that identity is fluid, layered, and mysterious. The you who watches is not some final destination, but part of an unfolding process of awareness. Neuroscience struggles here too. Our brains create models of self and other, but the raw experience of being aware is hard to capture. Studies show that self-awareness activates specific brain networks, but the observer of the observer is elusive, perhaps beyond brain function altogether. This paradox invites humility and wonder. It suggests that our deepest nature is a mystery, a living question rather than a fixed answer. To know yourself fully might mean to embrace not certainty, but openness to the unknown within. In practical terms, this insight can transform how you relate to your inner world. Instead of identifying tightly with thoughts, feelings, or roles, you glimpse the spaciousness behind them, the awareness that holds everything gently, without clinging. Meditative traditions cultivate this by training the mind to rest in pure awareness, noticing the layers of observation unfold. At first, you become aware of thoughts. Then, you become aware of being aware of thoughts. And if you follow this path deeply, you reach a state where the boundary between observer and observed dissolves into a seamless flow of presence. This is the thought that thinks, the awareness that is both thinker and thought, space and form, silence and sound. It transcends the ordinary sense of self, opening into a realm where distinctions blur and you touch the infinite. It's a place where the question, who is aware of the one who's aware, becomes not a puzzle to solve, but an invitation to experience the vastness beyond thought. An experience that cannot be captured in words, only glimpsed in moments of stillness. So, when you return your attention inward, remember, you are not just a thinker of thoughts. You are the presence that knows thinking itself. The silent witness in the heart of consciousness, the thought that thinks itself into being, again and again. And in that mystery lies the profound truth of your existence, ungraspable, boundless, endlessly unfolding. The free will illusion. Every day, from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you close them, you make countless choices. What to eat, what to say, where to go, who to trust. The sensation of choosing is so immediate, so undeniable, that it forms the very core of how you experience yourself as a conscious being. You are the author of your story, the captain of your ship. But what if this feeling of freedom is just that? A feeling? An illusion? If every choice you make is shaped by prior causes, your genetics, your upbringing, the environment you live in, the neurons firing in your brain, then where does freedom truly exist? Are you genuinely choosing, or are you being chosen by factors beyond your awareness or control? This question cuts to the heart of what it means to be human, challenging the idea that you have control over your life. Consider the science. Neuroscientists have shown that the brain begins preparing for decisions milliseconds before you become consciously aware of them. Experiments by Benjamin Libet and others reveal that unconscious neural activity predicts your actions before you decide to act. Your sense of consciously making a choice might be a post hoc narrative your brain constructs to explain what is already in motion. But this is only part of the story. Determinism, the idea that every event follows inevitably from preceding conditions, suggests a universe where everything is cause and effect. If your thoughts, feelings, and decisions are part of this chain, then the concept of free will seems untenable. Yet, the experience of freedom is so vivid and persistent that it cannot be dismissed easily. Philosophers have debated this paradox for centuries. Some, like hard determinists, argue that free will is impossible, all is predetermined. Others, compatibilists, say free will is compatible with determinism if freedom is understood as the capacity to act according to one's desires, without external coercion. But even this leaves open the question, where do desires themselves come from? Imagine a puppeteer pulling strings. Are you the puppet, dancing to the music of genes, culture, and circumstance? Or are you the puppeteer, somehow outside the chain of causes? Modern science suggests the former, but human consciousness feels like more than a mechanical process. There is creativity, spontaneity, and reflection, qualities that hint at something beyond pure cause and effect. Yet, even creativity emerges from complex brain processes. Our beliefs, values, and motivations all have histories embedded in neural networks shaped by experience. The freedom you feel might be the product of an intricate interplay of unconscious factors, not an uncaused cause. This realization can be unsettling. It calls into question moral responsibility, accountability, and the meaning of choice. If your decisions are predetermined, can you be praised or blamed? How do we hold ourselves or others responsible? Some argue that responsibility remains meaningful because it influences future behavior, regardless of determinism. The illusion of free will may serve an evolutionary purpose. Believing we are in control motivates action, fosters social cooperation, and supports ethical systems. Even if free will is illusory, its effects are real in shaping human life. At the same time, understanding the limits of free will can bring compassion. Recognizing that behavior is influenced by factors beyond conscious control encourages empathy toward others and ourselves. It opens space for healing, change, and growth, not through blame, but through understanding causes. The paradox invites us to reframe freedom. Rather than an absolute, perhaps freedom is a dance between necessity and possibility, structure and emergence. You may not choose the conditions that shape you, but within those conditions, you can navigate, reflect, and influence. Your awareness itself is a form of freedom. Freedom to question, to learn, to grow. Ultimately, the question, are you choosing or being chosen, may not have a simple answer. It challenges you to look deeply at your own experience and the nature of reality. It calls you to live with mystery, uncertainty, and humility. In this tension between illusion and reality lies the profound human experience, to act as if free, to reflect on that freedom, and to create meaning in the face of complexity. So, the next time you make a choice, pause and wonder, who is really at the helm? The answer may be both simpler and more mysterious than you imagine. The glitch recall effect. Memory is often called the archive of reality. We rely on it to tell us what happened, who we are, and how we relate to the world. But what if memory itself is a glitchy, unreliable system? What if the past you remember is not the same as the past someone else remembers? If two people recall the same event differently, and both versions feel equally real and vivid, then was reality ever truly one thing to begin with? Think back to a shared moment in your life, a conversation with a friend, a family gathering, a dramatic experience. Now ask yourself, did you and that other person remember it exactly the same way? Chances are no. You might remember the tone differently, the exact words, even the emotions. Both memories are detailed, sincere, and compelling. Both feel like the truth. So, whose memory holds the real event? Psychologists call this phenomenon memory distortion, or false memory. Our brains do not record events like video cameras. Instead, memories are reconstructed each time we recall them, blending facts, feelings, and fragments of imagination. The process is fallible, vulnerable to suggestion, bias, and emotional state. This means memories can shift, fade, or even invent details. Now, imagine two witnesses to a crime describing the scene. Their testimonies diverge in key points, yet both are confident. The legal system wrestles with this every day, trying to find an objective truth within conflicting subjective accounts. But what if the objective truth is elusive or even inaccessible? What if reality itself splinters at the moment of perception? Philosophically, this challenges the notion of a single, unified reality. If what we remember as past events differs so drastically between individuals, is there an underlying real event at all? Or is reality more like a fractal, endlessly branching into personal interpretations, perceptions, and recollections? This is the essence of the glitch recall effect. The glitch is not a technological error, but a fundamental flaw in human memory and perception. It exposes how the mind's narrative, our internal story, is a patchwork built from incomplete and mutable pieces. Consider the Mandela effect, where groups of people remember an event or fact differently from recorded history. Entire populations recall a version of reality that contradicts official records. Names, logos, movie lines, even geography shift in collective memory. This raises a chilling question. If mass memories can glitch this way, then what anchors reality? One possibility is that reality exists independently, but our access to it is filtered through imperfect minds. The real event happened, but our retellings warp it like reflections in a fractured mirror. Another possibility, more radical, is that reality is not fixed, but co-created by our perceptions and memories. Reality is subjective, not objective. This aligns with quantum theories, suggesting that observation influences the state of particles. On a macro scale, our shared reality could be an agreed-upon construct, maintained by collective memory and consensus. When memories diverge, the shared construct fractures, revealing multiple realities coexisting in parallel. Imagine if every person's memory is a thread in a vast tapestry. Each thread weaves its own pattern, sometimes overlapping, sometimes diverging. The image formed is never exactly the same for any two observers. And yet, from these threads emerges the experience of a shared world. The emotional weight of memories adds another layer. People remember events not just as cold facts, but through feelings: joy, anger, fear, love. Emotions tint memories, altering their vividness and perceived truth. This subjective coloring means that even identical experiences become unique for each individual. Our brains also prioritize survival. Memories that protect us from danger or reinforce identity are strengthened. Inconvenient or painful memories may be suppressed or altered. This survival mechanism means memory is not a faithful historian, but a creative storyteller. So when two people argue over what really happened, both are right and wrong simultaneously. Each recalls their truth shaped by biology, emotion, and experience. The idea of a single fixed past fractures under the weight of these glitches. What does this mean for how we understand ourselves and others? It calls for humility and empathy. To recognize that your reality, your memories and experiences, is not universal. Others' truths may differ, yet be equally valid. Conflict often arises from forgetting this fundamental glitch. In relationships, this awareness can transform disputes into conversations. Instead of insisting on a sole version of reality, we can explore the multiple narratives that coexist. We learn that reality is less a solid fact and more a shared dance of perceptions. Memory glitches are not flaws, but features of the human mind. Adaptations that allow flexibility, creativity, and emotional depth. But they also remind us that certainty is fragile. The past is not a locked vault, but a shifting landscape. If reality is never one fixed thing, but a mosaic of many fractured memories, then the glitch recall effect reveals the beautiful complexity of human experience. It teaches us to embrace uncertainty, to question our certainties, and to honor the multitude of realities we each carry within us. In the end, the question is not what really happened, but how do we live with multiple truths? Our minds glitch, memories diverge, yet through understanding and connection, we find meaning beyond a singular, immutable reality. Matter isn't material. At the most fundamental level, matter as we know it begins to unravel. The solid, tangible world we experience every day. The chair you sit on, the skin you touch, the ground beneath your feet, feels concrete and immutable. Yet, when science peels back the layers to the quantum realm, the very notion of matter as solid stuff dissolves into something far stranger. Probabilities, waves, and fleeting particles that pop in and out of existence. Imagine the atoms that compose your body. They seem like tiny billiard balls, fixed and solid. But look closer, at the quantum scale, and those atoms are mostly empty space. The electrons orbiting the nucleus don't have precise locations. Instead, they exist as clouds of probability, described by a mathematical entity called the wave function. These electrons can be in multiple places at once, only settling into a definite state when observed or measured. The particles themselves, electrons, quarks, photons, are not little solid objects, but excitations in underlying quantum fields that permeate the universe. These fields are everywhere, and particles are the ripples or vibrations in these fields. It's as if the universe is a vast ocean of invisible energy, and what we call matter is the dance of waves on its surface. Moreover, quantum particles don't follow classical rules. They can vanish and reappear, tunnel through barriers, and exist in superpositions of states. This means that matter is not material in the traditional sense, but a manifestation of probabilities and interactions governed by the strange laws of quantum mechanics. So, if matter isn't solid, what are you made from? You are composed of patterns of energy, probability waves, and fields interacting in intricate ways. Your body is a complex, dynamic arrangement of quantum events that, when taken together at a larger scale, give rise to the illusion of solidity and permanence. The skin you feel is mostly empty space held together by electromagnetic forces and quantum rules. This challenges our intuitive sense of reality. We identify ourselves with the physical body, assuming it is a stable, unchanging object. But at its core, your existence is a continuous flow of quantum events, fleeting, intangible, and fundamentally uncertain. The solidity we perceive is a macroscopic effect emerging from countless quantum interactions. This revelation doesn't diminish your reality, it enriches it. It connects you to the fundamental fabric of the cosmos in a way that transcends simple materialism. You are not a fixed lump of matter, but a living constellation of quantum phenomena, a dance of energy and probability that pulses with the rhythm of the universe. Understanding this can shift how you perceive yourself and the world. It invites a sense of wonder at the mystery beneath the surface, a recognition that solidity is a story told by the scales we inhabit, not the ultimate truth. At the quantum level, you are less a thing and more a process, a symphony of invisible forces weaving the tapestry of life. So, matter isn't material in the way we once thought. Instead, you are a shimmering pattern in the quantum sea, both ephemeral and eternal, both wave and particle, both nothing and everything. This is the paradox of your existence, the profound truth beneath the surface of all that seems solid and real. The thought echo chamber. When you pause and turn your mind inward, you start with a simple act, reflecting on yourself. You ask, who am I? What do I think? What do I feel? But then, something strange happens. You reflect on that reflection. You watch yourself, watching yourself. Suddenly, your mind becomes a hall of mirrors, an endless cascade of thoughts bouncing back and forth, each reflection spawning another. How deep does this hall go? Is there an end, or do you spiral forever inward? This phenomenon, the thought echo chamber, is the mind's paradoxical loop. At first glance, self-reflection seems straightforward, a tool for understanding. But when reflection turns recursive, it becomes a labyrinth where thoughts multiply and intertwine, making the self both subject and observer, creator and creation. The very act of thinking about thinking creates layers upon layers of mental echoes, a fractal of consciousness folding back on itself. Imagine standing in a room lined with mirrors on all sides. Your image repeats infinitely, stretching into an abyss of reflections. Each image is slightly different, some brighter, some dimmer, distorted by the angles and light. Your mind works the same way. Each layer of reflection alters the last, coloring it with doubt, desire, or fear. The deeper you go, the more the reflections distort. You start to question, which you is real? Which thought is the true core beneath the infinite images? Philosophers have long grappled with this. Descartes' famous declaration, "I think, therefore I am," relies on the idea that thought is proof of existence. But when the thought itself becomes the object of thought, where does that leave us? Does self-awareness give birth to clarity, or does it plunge us into a recursive echo chamber where certainty dissolves? Psychology reveals another layer. Our minds crave patterns and certainty, but in this endless hall, the search for self can become exhausting and disorienting. Sometimes this recursive self-examination leads to anxiety or paralysis, the feeling of being trapped in your own mind, unable to escape the loop of endless questioning. But this hall of mirrors also offers profound insight. By navigating through layers of reflection, you can uncover hidden biases, forgotten memories, or buried emotions. Each echo is a clue, a fragment of the self that can be understood and integrated. The depth of the chamber is not just a trap, it's a landscape for growth. Examples appear in meditation and mindfulness, where practitioners learn to observe their thoughts without judgment. Instead of getting lost in the echoes, they watch reflections pass like clouds, gaining distance and clarity. This practice reveals that the hall of mirrors can be traversed, not by trying to find a final you, but by embracing the flow of reflections themselves. In literature and art, this theme recurs, characters confronting their own reflections, facing endless doppelgangers, or diving into the fractal complexity of identity. These stories echo a universal human experience, the search for self amid layers of thought and perception. So, how deep does the hall of mirrors go? The truth is, it might be infinite, an endless spiral of reflection without a fixed center. But rather than fearing this infinity, we can learn to move through it with curiosity and acceptance, understanding that the self is not a single image, but a dynamic interplay of reflections. In the thought echo chamber, the self is both mirror and reflected, question and answer, seeker and sought. The journey inward is not about finding a final, unchanging core, but about embracing the dance of thoughts, the endless reverberations that make us who we are. And in this dance, the hall of mirrors transforms from a prison into a vast hall of discovery, where each reflection, no matter how deep, holds the possibility of insight, connection, and ultimately, understanding. Repetition becomes reality. Imagine for a moment that the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs, the fears, the identities, are not fixed truths, but echoes of repetition. Repetition so persistent, so insistent, that it dresses itself up as reality. How many of your convictions began as a whisper, a suggestion from outside or inside, repeated so often that you stopped questioning and started believing? And if a lie is told enough times, and you accept it as truth, then how much of you is simply repetition masquerading as authenticity? We live in a world flooded with information, voices, opinions, and narratives. From childhood, we absorb messages, some nurturing, some harmful, that shape the lens through which we see ourselves and the world. These messages settle deep in the mind's soil, sprouting into beliefs that feel as natural as breathing, as real as skin. Consider the power of propaganda, advertising, even the toxic self-talk many endure. When a phrase repeats, "You're not good enough," "You will never succeed," "You must be perfect," it seeps into the subconscious. The brain begins to treat these repetitions as facts, wiring neural pathways that reinforce them like grooves worn into rock. Over time, these repeated statements are no longer just words. They become the architecture of your identity. But pause and ask, are these repeated beliefs inherently true, or are they echoes, shadows cast by voices external and internal, amplified until they drown out the still small voice of your authentic self? Psychologists call this cognitive conditioning. Our minds are highly susceptible to patterns, and repetition is one of the most effective tools for shaping thought. When repeated frequently, ideas form neural networks, habitual patterns that influence perception, emotion, and behavior. The repetition not only influences how you think, but can distort what you remember, who you trust, and how you relate to yourself. Think about the placebo effect. A patient told a treatment will help, and because of belief built through repeated assurances, they experience real improvement. The mind's power to shape reality through repetition is astonishing, blurring the line between objective truth and perceived truth. This mechanism has a darker side as well. Propaganda campaigns, misinformation, and social conditioning exploit repetition to implant beliefs that may be false, harmful, or limiting. The more you hear a statement, regardless of its factual accuracy, the more it feels true. Repetition becomes a weapon, bending minds to narratives not chosen, but absorbed. In your personal life, repetition can trap you in cycles of self-doubt and fear. A critical comment repeated internally over years can become the core belief of, "I am unworthy." A childhood scar may replay in your thoughts, endlessly rehearsed, coloring every new experience. The question becomes, how much of your sense of self is genuinely you, and how much is a composite of these repeated stories, worn thin by time yet accepted as immutable? This realization can be deeply unsettling. It challenges the solidity of identity and shakes the foundations of self. Yet, it also offers a path toward liberation. Because if repetition shapes reality, then deliberate repetition can reshape it. The practice of mindfulness reveals this power. By becoming aware of the mental scripts running in the background, you gain the ability to interrupt them, to question the stories you repeat, to replace lies with truths consciously chosen. Affirmations, when repeated with presence and intention, can plant seeds of transformation. Like tuning an instrument, repetition aligns your mind with new harmonies, ones that reflect your true nature rather than conditioned narratives. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain's plasticity means new pathways can be forged, old patterns softened, and new identities cultivated. Your mind is not a fixed prison, but a garden in constant bloom, shaped by what you nurture through repetition. But this is not an overnight fix. The worn grooves of repetition are deep and require patience, awareness, and persistence to reshape. Every moment offers a choice, to reinforce old beliefs or to craft new ones. This awareness calls for radical honesty, to notice what you repeat silently, the stories whispered in your mind, the narratives accepted without scrutiny, and to ask, is this mine? Is this truth? Or merely an echo, repeated so long that it has lost its origin? In this inquiry lies freedom, because the you that is shaped by repetition is not the whole truth. Beneath the layers of repeated stories lies an authentic self, waiting beyond the noise, a self untouched by lies, unconditioned by repetition. When you break the cycle, when you see repetition for what it is, you reclaim your reality. You step out of the scripted narrative and become the author of your own story. You learn that reality is not imposed upon you, but created moment by moment through what you choose to believe, to repeat, and to live. So next time a thought or belief repeats in your mind, ask yourself, is this truly me, or is it repetition dressed as truth? And remember, the power to rewrite lies in your hands, in your attention, your awareness, your willingness to listen beyond the echoes. Because reality is not fixed. It is a story told again and again, by you, for you, or by others, shaping what you accept. And in the spaces between repetition, the genuine self waits, silent and free. The unverifiable existence loop. Every moment of your life is experienced through your senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. These senses form the gateway to the world, allowing you to perceive objects, people, and events around you. But what if this gateway is also a barrier? What if your access to reality is confined within the walls of your own perception? And beyond that, certainty dissolves into a paradox so profound that it defies resolution? Consider this. You believe other people exist because you see them, hear their voices, feel their presence. Yet, how can you prove those others exist beyond your own subjective experience? After all, your knowledge of their existence depends entirely on your senses. Without your senses, how would you know of others at all? Now, flip the question. Others believe you exist because they perceive you through their own senses. But how can they prove their senses are reliable without you to confirm, to interact with, to verify their experience? If your existence helps validate their perception, and their existence validates yours, then you find yourself trapped in a loop, a circular dance of mutual verification. This is the unverifiable existence loop. It exposes the fragile foundations of what we call reality, revealing a relationship between self and other that is endlessly recursive and fundamentally uncertain. It's a philosophical riddle that challenges the assumptions we take for granted every day. Descartes famously declared, "I think, therefore I am," grounding existence in self-awareness. But existence of others, the external world, and even our senses themselves cannot be so easily established. The skeptic asks, how do you know you are not alone in your perceptions? How do you know that the world around you is not a projection of your own mind, a vivid hallucination, or a dream? Solipsism, the belief that only your own mind is sure to exist, arises from this doubt. But it leads to another puzzle. If only you exist, why is there such a consistent, complex world full of others who seem independent and unpredictable? How do you explain the shared experiences, the interactions, the mutual influences? Science approaches this by relying on intersubjectivity, the agreement between multiple observers about the properties of the world. But this agreement presupposes the existence and reliability of others' perceptions, which returns us to the original loop. It's a circular verification without a firm external anchor. Neuroscience tells us that the brain constructs our experience, assembling sensory data into coherent scenes, but it cannot guarantee that these scenes correspond to anything outside the mind. Your sensory reality might be a simulation, a construct, or an elaborate illusion. Yet, the consistency and complexity of shared human experience hint at something more. This paradox touches on the very nature of consciousness and connection. Who verifies who? If your senses depend on others and others depend on your senses, then existence is relational, dependent not on isolated individuals, but on the web of mutual awareness. Being is not solitary, it is a shared act, a dance between perceiver and perceived. In some spiritual traditions, this idea is central. Reality is seen as a co-created phenomenon, a unified field of consciousness manifesting as multiplicity. The self and other are reflections of the same source, intertwined inseparably. To exist is to be witnessed, and to witness is to affirm existence. Yet, this can feel both beautiful and unsettling. The unverifiable existence loop challenges your certainty, urging you to embrace mystery rather than demand absolute proof. It asks you to live with ambiguity, to accept that the deepest truths may lie beyond what senses can confirm. In practical terms, this means that connection and trust, empathy and relationship becomes the foundation of reality. We verify each other not through absolute certainty, but through shared experience, vulnerability, and acknowledgement. In this fragile trust, existence gains meaning. So, next time you look into another's eyes, hear their voice, or touch their hand, remember this loop. Your existence and theirs are intertwined in a cosmic dance of verification, a mutual witnessing that defies final proof but creates the very fabric of reality. And in that dance, you may find the profound truth that existence is less about solitary certainty and more about shared presence, a mysterious, beautiful loop of being that no mind can ever fully unravel. You were chosen to forget. What if the greatest secret you carry is not what you remember, but what you were chosen to forget? Imagine this. Before you were born, before your first breath, you made a choice, a decision to enter this life. Yet, the moment you arrive, that choice is wiped clean from your mind. You awaken with no memory of agreeing to the journey, no awareness of the reasons or the purpose behind it. Is this loss of memory a cruel amnesia or a deliberate design woven into the fabric of existence? And if you forgot the choice to be here, what else did you forget? Many spiritual traditions and philosophies hint at this mystery. They suggest that souls select their lives, families, challenges, lessons, before incarnation. This idea frames life as a purposeful journey, with forgetting as a necessary veil. Without this veil, how could you fully immerse yourself in experience? How could you genuinely grow if you carried the burden of past knowledge? Think about it. If you remembered every detail from previous existences, every joy and pain, every victory and failure, life would be overwhelming. The slate would not be clean, the mystery and spontaneity of discovery would vanish. Forgetting, then, is not a flaw or punishment. It is the canvas on which the story of your life is painted. But what else did you forget? What ancient wisdom, what hidden truths lie buried beneath layers of amnesia? Are memories of who you truly are locked away, waiting to be rediscovered? Some call this the forgotten self, the essence that transcends personality, culture, and circumstance. Science speaks to a similar mystery through the concept of implicit memory and subconscious influence. Much of what guides you is hidden from conscious awareness. Instincts, intuition, biases, echoes of experiences that feel like forgotten dreams. Could these be fragments of what you once knew or once chose before forgetting? This forgetting might also be a protective mechanism. The human mind, vulnerable and fragile, might not withstand the weight of infinite knowledge, so it cloaks itself in amnesia to preserve sanity and focus. This allows you to live fully in the present moment, encountering life freshly, with wonder and fear, hope and despair. Yet, beneath this fog, some glimpse fleeting recollections, déjà vu, intuition, sudden insights that feel like whispers from beyond. Could these moments be sparks of the forgotten choice igniting your consciousness? Small cracks in the amnesic veil hinting at a greater design? Philosophers ask, if you chose to forget, then what power lies in the act of remembering? Is awakening to the forgotten self a form of liberation? Or is it a burden, unmasking illusions and confronting truths too vast for ordinary understanding? The idea challenges our sense of control and identity. If your birth was not random, but a chosen mission, then your life's struggles and triumphs are chapters in a story you scripted long before. This reframes suffering, joy, and destiny as parts of a grand design, one written in a language older than time. But it also poses a paradox. How can free will exist if forgetting erases choice? Perhaps forgetting is itself the ultimate freedom, the freedom to live without the constraints of preordained knowledge, to create meaning anew with each moment. In this light, amnesia is not loss, but gift, the chance to dance in the dark, to write your own story without the weight of past scripts. Yet, the yearning to remember, to uncover what was forgotten, remains a silent call in your soul. So ask yourself, what did you forget before your first breath? What truths lie hidden beyond the veil of forgetting? And if you were chosen to forget, what else might you be chosen to discover? The mind pretends the world equals sign. If your brain creates the world from signals, then are you perceiving reality or constructing it from fragments? This question cuts to the core of how we experience existence. What you see, hear, touch, and feel is not a direct connection to the outside world, but a carefully crafted interpretation by your mind, pieced together from countless electrical impulses and chemical reactions. The world as you know it is less a mirror of reality and more a simulation constructed within your brain. Every sensation you experience begins as raw data, photons hitting your retina, sound waves vibrating your eardrum, pressure receptors firing in your skin. These signals travel along nerve pathways to your brain, where they are processed and decoded. But the brain does not simply record these signals like a camera. It actively interprets, fills in gaps, and predicts what is happening. Your perception is shaped by prior knowledge, memories, expectations, and even your emotional state. The brain constantly generates hypotheses about the world and updates them based on incoming data. This means that what you see or hear is already a constructed model, a best guess at what might be out there. Consider optical illusions as examples. When confronted with ambiguous or incomplete visual information, your brain fills in missing pieces or distorts reality to create a coherent picture. Sometimes it gets it wrong, revealing how perception is not a straightforward reflection, but an active construction. Neuroscience shows that much of what you experience consciously is the end product of complex neural processing that you never directly access. You don't see raw data. You see a polished narrative crafted by your brain. This narrative is your reality, and it feels utterly real because it is your lived experience. If the world you perceive is a construction of your mind, then the line between perception and reality blurs. Reality exists independently, but your access to it is filtered and interpreted. You experience a version of reality that is uniquely your own, shaped by your biology, history, and context. This leads to profound implications. Two people witnessing the same event may perceive it differently, each constructing a different reality. Your sense of self, your beliefs about the world, and your interactions are all grounded in these mental constructs. This subjective nature of experience challenges the idea of an objective, fixed reality accessible to all. Yet this construction is not a flaw, it is a necessity. The brain's interpretive process allows you to function effectively in a complex and uncertain world. By creating a simplified, predictive model of reality, you can navigate, anticipate, and survive. Philosophers from Immanuel Kant to contemporary thinkers have argued that we can never know things in themselves, only phenomena filtered through our cognitive faculties. The world you know is always mediated by your mind's construction. So, are you perceiving reality or constructing it from fragments? The answer is both. Reality exists, but you experience it through a mental tapestry woven from fragments of sensory input, memories, and imagination. Your mind is both a window and a filter, a creator and a receiver. Understanding this invites humility and curiosity. It encourages you to question your assumptions, to be aware of the mind's creative role, and to recognize that your reality is a unique, dynamic construction, fragile, malleable, and profoundly yours. Stored identity storage problem. If your brain is the storage device for you, then the question becomes, what happens to your identity when that storage changes? Unlike a static hard drive that preserves data perfectly, the brain is a dynamic, living organ, constantly rewiring, growing, decaying, and adapting. Neurons form new connections while old ones fade away. Chemical balances shift. Memories alter, fade, or even fabricate themselves. So, if you reside in this shifting landscape, how does your identity stay consistent over time? Consider your favorite book. If each time you open it, some pages were rewritten, some paragraphs rearranged, and some chapters lost, would it still tell the same story? The brain is far more fluid than a book, and yet somehow you feel like the same person day after day, year after year. This persistence of self, despite physical flux, is one of the deepest puzzles in philosophy and neuroscience. The brain's plasticity, the ability to change its structure and function, is vital for learning and adaptation. But it raises a problem. If the substrate that holds your identity is always in flux, then is identity an illusion? Or is it something more abstract that transcends the material changes? One way to think about this is through the idea of pattern rather than substance. Your identity might not be stored in a fixed set of neurons, but in the pattern of connections and the flow of information. Imagine a whirlpool in a river. The water molecules constantly move and change, but the pattern of the whirlpool remains recognizable. Your brain might work similarly, with you being the emergent pattern that persists even as the underlying material shifts. But what about when the pattern itself shifts drastically? Consider conditions like amnesia or brain injury. When memories vanish or personality changes, people often say the person is not the same anymore. Does that mean the identity was broken? Or is identity more fragile and mutable than we assume? These cases expose the vulnerability of the stored identity model. Philosophers have debated whether identity is about continuity of memory, consciousness, or something else entirely. John Locke argued that memory continuity forms personal identity. If you remember being someone, that connects your past self to your present. Yet, memory is notoriously unreliable. If memory fails, does identity vanish? Neuroscience shows that the brain is a complex network where memories and personality traits are distributed, not localized. This distribution might explain how identity can survive small changes, but it also means that radical changes in brain structure can disrupt the whole system. If the storage device is so fragile, what does that say about the data it holds? Another layer is the self model, the brain's ongoing narrative it creates about itself. This narrative integrates sensory input, emotions, thoughts, and memories into a coherent story we call me. But this story is constantly edited, updated, and sometimes rewritten. The you in this story is a construct, a kind of ongoing project rather than a fixed entity. Imagine software running on a constantly upgrading computer, where parts of the code rewrite themselves while the program still runs smoothly. The self might be like that software, a running process rather than a stored file. Ultimately, the stored identity storage problem challenges our assumptions about the permanence and stability of self. It forces us to see identity as fluid, emergent, and relational rather than fixed and isolated. So, what keeps your identity consistent? Perhaps it's not one thing but a combination. The persistent pattern of neural connections, the continuous flow of consciousness, the ongoing narrative you tell yourself, and the social context that recognizes and reinforces your existence. Identity is less a stored thing and more a living process, a story told through change, not in spite of it. This realization can be both unsettling and freeing. It means you are not trapped in a static self, but are free to evolve, grow, and redefine who you are, even as the brain that hosts you changes. The self is both fragile and resilient, a dance of biology and experience, ever shifting yet somehow enduring. In the end, the mystery remains. How does the physical brain create the persistent sense of you? While science advances, the answer might forever blend fact and mystery, an invitation to explore not just who we are, but how we become. The alien observer paradox. Imagine for a moment that somewhere beyond the stars, beings unlike us watch Earth, silent observers from distant galaxies, peering in without revealing their presence, unseen, unnoticed, yet profoundly aware. If such alien observers exist, then what does that mean for us? Could it be that we are not the subjects of our own story, but the experiment itself? That in the vast cosmic theater, we are the observed, not the observers. This idea is not merely science fiction. It raises deep philosophical and scientific questions about observation, consciousness, and existence. We often imagine ourselves as the center of experience, the ones who watch, analyze, and understand the universe. But what if that perspective is limited? What if our reality is shaped or influenced by observers beyond our awareness? The thought echoes the ancient paradox of observation. To observe is to change. When you watch a quantum particle, its behavior shifts. Observation affects reality itself. Now, imagine this scaled up to cosmic proportions. Alien observers, simply by watching, could influence the fabric of our existence, collapsing probabilities into the reality we live. This shifts our sense of agency. If unseen watchers exist, then who truly holds the reins of reality? Are we autonomous agents, or are we variables in a grand experiment, our lives unfolding according to rules beyond our understanding? And more unnerving, if we are the experiment, then what is the purpose and who is the experimenter? In speculative science, this aligns with the simulation to hypothesis, the idea that our universe might be a sophisticated simulation run by advanced beings. If aliens watch without being seen, they could be monitoring, adjusting, or learning from our behavior without interference. Our thoughts, emotions, decisions, all data points in a vast cosmic study. Consider the impact of this possibility. It reframes every human experience, from love to suffering, from triumph to failure, not as random but potentially purposeful, or at least observed for some unknown reason. This creates a tension between freedom and determinism, between the intimate feeling of choice and the cold gaze of unseen eyes. Yet this paradox also invites wonder. If we are observed by alien minds, then our existence is significant enough to merit attention. We are not isolated, but part of a larger cosmic narrative, woven into the fabric of a universe teeming with intelligence. This possibility stretches the boundaries of humility and awe, but how would such watchers remain unseen? Advanced civilizations might have technologies far beyond our comprehension, capable of cloaking their presence, slipping through dimensions, or frequencies invisible to human senses. Their observation might be passive, recording, analyzing without interaction, or active, subtly influencing outcomes without detection. This echoes the notion in physics that observation need not be direct to influence reality. Even the mere potential of being observed can shape outcomes. The observer effect, in quantum mechanics, where measurement changes the system, suggests that the universe might be intrinsically participatory. Observation is not passive, but creative. In this light, your life becomes a stage illuminated by unseen spotlights. Every decision, every thought, every emotion might ripple through the vastness, recorded or studied. The intimacy of your inner world could be known beyond your planet, connecting you unknowingly to observers across cosmic distances. What then is the boundary between subject and object, observer and observed? If aliens watch without being seen, do they themselves become part of the reality they observe? Does their presence fold back upon itself, blurring distinctions between watcher and watched, experimenter and experiment? The paradox spirals deeper when you consider your own consciousness. Could you be both observer and observed simultaneously, caught in a loop of recursive awareness? This fractal complexity hints at a universe where boundaries dissolve, where everything is interconnected in ways that challenge linear thought. Ultimately, the alien observer paradox forces us to reconsider our place in the cosmos. Are we isolated beings adrift in an indifferent universe, or participants in a grand experiment watched by minds beyond stars? Are we subjects of curiosity, puzzles to solve, or co-creators in a shared cosmic dance? This mystery may never be fully answered, but embracing it can awaken a profound humility and a fierce curiosity. It urges you to live as if seen, not just by other humans, but by unknown eyes. To act with integrity, knowing that your existence might ripple far beyond what you imagine. So, the next time you gaze at the night sky, feeling small beneath the infinite stars, remember, you might be part of something far greater, observed by watchers whose presence shapes reality itself. You might not just be a subject, but a vital part of the cosmic experiment, a thought in the mind of the universe, observed yet observing, known yet mysterious. And in this paradox lies a strange comfort, the recognition that you are both the experiment and the experimenter, the watcher and the watched, forever entwined in the unfolding mystery of existence. The pain without a place. Pain is one of the most primal and immediate experiences of being alive. It demands attention, signals danger, and shapes how we interact with the world. We feel pain in our bodies, in our hands, feet, skin, muscles, organs. It is anchored in flesh, a raw physical reality. Or is it? Consider the phenomenon of phantom limb pain, when someone who has lost a limb continues to feel intense pain, as if that limb were still there. The hand, the foot, the arm that no longer exists is aching, burning, throbbing. How can this be? If the physical source of pain is gone, then where is the pain really felt? Is suffering rooted in flesh, or is it a creation of the mind's intricate illusions? Phantom limb pain challenges our assumptions about the relationship between body and mind. It reveals that pain is not simply a signal from damaged tissue. It is a complex, embodied experience generated by the brain's interpretation of sensory information, memory, and expectation. Neuroscientists have mapped this phenomenon to the brain's somatosensory cortex, the region responsible for processing sensations from the body. When a limb is lost, the corresponding brain area remains active and can generate pain signals despite the absence of the limb. The brain's map of the body becomes distorted, and the mind feels pain where there is no physical cause. This paradox suggests that suffering is not solely a property of flesh, but a dynamic experience of consciousness. Pain emerges from the brain's attempt to make sense of conflicting or missing information. The mind creates an illusion so convincing that it triggers real emotional and physical distress. But this realization does not diminish the reality of pain. It underscores its complexity. The suffering felt by those with phantom limb pain is genuine. It affects mood, quality of life, and mental health. The mind's illusion is as tangible as any physical wound, demonstrating the inseparability of mind and body. Philosophically, this invites us to rethink what pain truly is. Is it merely a symptom of tissue damage, or is it a holistic experience shaped by brain, body, and psyche? Pain is a language the body uses, but it is spoken and understood by the mind. The location of pain may be less important than the experience of pain. This perspective opens new avenues for treatment. Therapies like mirror therapy use visual illusions to trick the brain into perceiving the missing limb, alleviating pain by restoring coherence to the brain's body map. Such treatments acknowledge that suffering can be transformed by changing perception. The paradox of pain without a place also extends to emotional suffering. Heartbreak, grief, anxiety. These pains have no physical location, yet they are deeply real. They reveal how suffering transcends flesh, existing in the realm of mind and emotion. Understanding pain as an experience constructed by the brain encourages empathy and compassion. It reminds us that suffering may be invisible, complex, and not reducible to physical causes. Whether pain is felt in flesh or mind, it demands respect and care. In the end, the question, where is pain really felt, may not have a single answer. Pain inhabits body and mind, flesh and illusion, reality and perception. It is a bridge between our physical being and our conscious experience, a mystery at the core of what it means to be human. So, next time you or someone you love experiences pain, remember this paradox. Pain without a place is still pain, real and profound. It is the mind's shadow cast upon absence, the echo of a lost limb, and a testament to the intricate, fragile dance between body and consciousness. In this dance lies the profound truth. Suffering is not just in the flesh or the mind, it is in the very way we exist, feel, and make meaning in a world that is both tangible and intangible. The role you inherited. Before you even take your first breath, before you understand a single word or make a conscious decision, you are already immersed in a world built by others, a world shaped by a name, a language, a culture handed down through generations. This inheritance is not just a backdrop, it is a blueprint, a coded program embedded deep within you. It colors your perceptions, guides your choices, and often dictates your identity. But how much of you is truly your own? How much is a role scripted before your arrival, an inherited code you carry without question? Your name is the first gift, and sometimes the first burden. It links you to a family, a lineage, a history stretching far beyond your individual existence. In many cultures, names carry meaning, destiny, and expectation. They are more than labels. They are roles assigned, stories told before you have a voice. Imagine growing up hearing a name that carries honor or shame, pride or expectation. How does that shape who you believe yourself to be? How much of your sense of self is entwined with the legacy of that name? Language is another invisible inheritance that frames your reality. The words you speak, the grammar you internalize, the metaphors you think in, all shape your experience of the world. Linguists say language doesn't just describe reality, it creates it. The way your language structures time, space, and emotion influences how you perceive them. If you grow up speaking a language with multiple words for snow, your perception of winter's nuances sharpens. If your tongue lacks future tense, your concept of time shifts. You are not just born into a body, but into a cognitive framework shaped by inherited code. Culture goes even deeper. It is the complex web of beliefs, customs, values, and norms that teach you how to behave, what to desire, what to fear. Culture is the silent script whispered into your mind from infancy. What is right and wrong, beautiful or ugly, possible or impossible. You absorb rituals, habits, and worldviews that feel natural but are learned. You inherit roles assigned by family, society, gender, class, and nationality, often without conscious consent. Look at the countless stories of individuals who rebel against their inherited roles, the artist who breaks free from a rigid family tradition to forge their own path, the immigrant who straddles multiple cultures, weaving together old codes and new identities. Even these acts of defiance demonstrate how powerful and pervasive the inherited code is. It shapes the very framework from which rebellion emerges. Genetics also plays a part in this inheritance. Your DNA carries ancestral information, traits passed down through countless generations, personality tendencies, physical characteristics, even susceptibilities to disease. These are part of your inherited code. But unlike culture or language, genetics is a biological script, a physical blueprint that interacts with environment and experience to shape who you become. Consider how much of identity is a negotiation between inherited code and personal choice. From the moment you are born, you navigate the tension between what is given and what you claim as your own. How do you distinguish the authentic self from the role prescribed by lineage and environment? The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that existence precedes essence, that you are not born with a fixed nature, but create yourself through actions. Yet even Sartre acknowledged the weight of facticity, the conditions into which you are thrown and which you did not choose. This facticity is the inherited code, your name, language, culture, biology. But here lies the paradox. You are both the product of inheritance and the author of your story. The inherited role sets the stage, but you improvise the performance. Every choice, every act of reflection, every moment of self-awareness chips away at the predetermined script, revealing the freedom to rewrite. Yet, rewriting is not easy. The inherited code is embedded in neural pathways, social expectations, and emotional conditioning. It shapes your desires and fears so deeply that breaking free feels like uprooting yourself. Many never question the roles handed to them, living unconsciously within scripts written by ancestors and society. The question, "Who am I?" becomes entangled with, "Whose am I?" How much of your identity is truly yours, and how much is a lineage, a language, a culture speaking through you? Understanding this inheritance is the first step toward autonomy, toward recognizing the invisible chains and deciding which to carry, which to shed. Technology today amplifies this inheritance in new ways. Social media algorithms feed you content based on cultural and personal patterns, reinforcing inherited beliefs and biases. The digital age creates a feedback loop of inherited codes shaped by data and behavior. Your identity is coded not only by ancestry, but by the data traces you leave. In the end, the you that stands before the mirror is a palimpsest, a layered manuscript written and rewritten over time. Names, languages, cultures, genetics, all inscribed upon you before you knew. But beneath those layers lies a space for choice, a space for creating meaning beyond inherited scripts. So reflect deeply. What parts of your identity are inherited code? What roles have you been given without choice? And where, within the folds of inheritance, do you find the freedom to be truly yourself? The world you inhabit is shaped by the roles you inherited, but your power lies in how you interpret, transform, or transcend them. You are both legacy and innovation, a living bridge between past and future, carrying inherited code and writing new lines in the story of self. The resistance creates identity. If who you are is shaped by what you fight against, then remove resistance, and who remains? This profound question digs deep into the very essence of identity and selfhood. Our sense of who we are often forms in opposition, defined by conflict, struggle, and resistance. We carve out our identities by saying what we are not, by standing firm against forces that challenge or threaten us. But if that resistance disappears, if the obstacles, enemies, or contradictions vanish, what remains of the self? Is identity dependent on conflict, or is there something beyond it? Throughout history, resistance has been a defining force for individuals and communities alike. Nations arise in rebellion, cultures solidify against external threats, and personal growth is forged in the fires of adversity. The self is not born in isolation, but in tension with the world, against norms, expectations, and otherness. We resist to preserve what we value, to assert autonomy, to claim space. Resistance becomes a crucible where identity is tempered. Consider the simplest example. A child learns who they are by pushing against parental authority, testing boundaries, resisting control. This opposition shapes personality, beliefs, and values. Without such friction, the child's sense of self might be indistinct, undefined. Similarly, Social movements define themselves by resistance, whether against injustice, oppression, or inequality. The identity of a movement is inseparable from the forces it opposes. Even on a personal level, identity often crystallizes in conflict. Someone who has battled addiction, trauma, or discrimination frequently recounts how these struggles shaped their sense of self. The resistance against these forces becomes part of their story, a source of strength and meaning. "I am a survivor," they say, "because I fought and overcame." Philosophically, this ties into the idea that identity is relational and dialectical. We define ourselves not only by what we are, but by what we are not, through contrast and negation. The self is a dynamic interplay of affirmation and resistance. To remove resistance is to remove the counterpoint against which the self emerges. But what if resistance is removed? Imagine a world or a mind free from conflict, opposition, or challenge. Would identity dissolve into formlessness? Would the self lose its contours, becoming a blank slate without boundaries, without resistance, without something to push against? The sense of being distinct may fade. Yet, some traditions suggest that beyond resistance lies a deeper identity, not one built on conflict, but on pure being. Mystical and spiritual teachings often speak of the true self as beyond dualities, beyond struggle. This self is not defined by opposition, but by unity, presence, and acceptance. It is the I that remains when all battles cease. In psychology, too, there is recognition that healthy identity involves integration beyond conflict. While resistance shapes early development, true selfhood matures through reconciliation, acceptance, and wholeness. The goal is not perpetual opposition, but harmony with oneself and the world. Examples in literature and art capture this tension. Characters who define themselves by opposition often face crises when the enemy disappears. They must confront the question, who am I without the battle? Sometimes this leads to liberation, sometimes to despair. The disappearance of resistance forces a re-examination of identity's foundations. On a societal level, peace and stability can challenge collective identities forged in struggle. Nations born in conflict may struggle to redefine themselves in times of peace. The question arises, can identity survive without an adversary? Can it transform into something creative rather than reactive? In your own life, consider the forces you resist: habits, fears, expectations, or societal pressures. These resistances shape your narrative. But what happens if you release the fight, surrender the struggle? Does your identity collapse or expand? Is there a core self beyond resistance? This exploration is not about negating the role of resistance. It is vital, real, and formative. But it invites us to imagine identity beyond opposition, to seek the self beneath the battle. It challenges the notion that conflict is necessary for being and opens the door to new ways of understanding who we are. In the silence after the fight, in the absence of resistance, what remains is a question as old as humanity. It calls us to look inward, beyond the dramas of opposition, to the quiet ground of existence. It asks, who are you when you stop fighting? The answer may be the most profound identity of all, a self that simply is, free from all struggle, whole, and unbound. So as you reflect on your own identity, remember this paradox. Resistance creates identity, but the truest self may lie beyond resistance, in the stillness that remains when the fight ends. The self-canceling voice. Every day within the quiet chambers of your mind, a conversation unfolds, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, between competing voices. One voice says yes, eager and hopeful. Another says no, cautious and restrained. You argue with yourself constantly, wrestling with choices, doubts, desires, and fears. But this internal dialogue raises a profound question. Which voice is truly you? Or are both simply echoes bouncing within a cavern of self? Our minds are rarely a unified chorus, singing in harmony. Instead, they are more like a crowded room filled with multiple perspectives, instincts, and impulses, each vying for attention. One voice urges action, another warns restraint. One craves comfort, another demands challenge. These voices often contradict, creating tension, confusion, and sometimes paralysis. This clash reveals that the self is not a singular, fixed entity, but a complex interplay of many inner agents. Neuroscience supports this view, showing that different brain regions govern distinct drives and emotions. sometimes pulling us in opposite directions. Psychologists describe this as a multiplicity of selves coexisting, parts of us shaped by past experiences, cultural norms, and biological impulses. But if you hear opposing voices, which is the real you, the yes or the no, the part that wants to leap or the part that hesitates? The answer might be neither, and both at the same time. These voices are not separate selves, but reflections of the inner complexity that makes us human. They are echoes, yes, but echoes born from layers of memory, emotion, and thought weaving together in a dynamic conversation. Imagine a room of mirrors, each reflecting a different angle of your thoughts and feelings. No single reflection captures the whole picture, but together they create a fuller sense of identity. The self-canceling voice isn't a problem to solve, but a natural state to accept. The self is a dialogue, not a monologue. Philosophers like William James describe the self as a stream of consciousness, fluid and ever-changing, not a fixed point. The voices within you are part of that flow, sometimes aligned, sometimes discordant, but always part of the ongoing narrative you live. This internal debate can be a source of creativity, growth, and wisdom. By listening to opposing voices, you learn to weigh options, understand contradictions, and navigate complexity. The conflict between yes and no sharpens your sense of agency. It's in this tension that choice emerges. Yet, this inner dialogue can also trap us in cycles of doubt and indecision. When voices cancel each other out completely, the self can feel fractured, lost between extremes. Mindfulness and self-awareness practices help by allowing us to observe these voices without being swept away, watching the yes and no pass like clouds without identifying fully with either. So, are the voices inside you truly you, or are they echoes? Perhaps the truth is both. You are not a singular voice, but the space in which these voices arise, the listener, the witness, the awareness behind the echoes. The self is not what speaks, but what listens. In that quiet space beyond yes and no, beyond argument and agreement, lies a deeper presence, the self that holds complexity without needing to resolve it. Embracing the self-canceling voices means embracing the full spectrum of your humanity, the doubts, the certainties, the hopes, and the fears. Next time you argue with yourself, remember, those voices are not enemies to defeat, but parts of a richer conversation. You are the room that holds the echoes, the silence between the words, the ever-shifting harmony of inner selves. And in that dynamic, you find the true essence of who you are, not one voice, but the symphony itself. No experience without contrast. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the weight of this truth. Every experience you have, every feeling, every sensation depends on contrast. You only know light because you have known darkness. You only recognize joy because you have felt pain. Happiness is meaningful only when sadness exists. Pleasure only when suffering is possible. This interplay between opposites is the pulse of existence, the rhythm that gives depth and color to your life. But this raises a profound question. If every part of you depends on contrast, then is there a core beyond these shifting opposites? Is there a self beyond the dance of light and shadow? Think about it. Your awareness of warmth is always relative to cold. When you step into sunlight after a chilly morning, the warmth feels amplified, almost miraculous. But without the cold, warmth loses its meaning. It becomes neutral, dull, without significance. Similarly, when joy follows deep sorrow, it shines with a brilliance impossible to achieve alone. The contrast sharpens experience. It sculpts reality in relief and shadow. This fundamental law of contrast shapes everything: how we perceive the world, how we build memory, how we find meaning. Life unfolds through a series of tensions, each side defining the other. Without pain, pleasure is just an abstract word. Without failure, success lacks flavor. Even love itself gains depth through the vulnerability of loss and fear. Now, consider what this means for your sense of self. The I you identify with, the core of your being, is built from experiences, feelings, and memories that rely on contrast. You know yourself through the dynamic interplay of who you were, who you are, and who you are not. Your identity forms in the space between opposites, like a melody shaped by silence, as much as by notes. But if your existence is woven from contrasts, does that imply there is no fixed core beneath them? that beneath joy and pain, light and darkness, there is only shifting patterns, no enduring essence. This idea unsettles our deepest assumptions. We crave stability, a permanent self that endures beyond change. Yet, contrast suggests that the self is more like a river than a rock, flowing, changing, defined by movement rather than permanence. Philosophers and mystics have long grappled with this paradox. The ancient Taoist teaching says, "Under heaven all can see beauty as beauty only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good only because there is evil." It points to a unity beneath duality, a source beyond the dance of opposites. The core, if it exists, must transcend contrast while embracing it. In modern psychology, this aligns with the understanding that identity is constructed, flexible, and relational. You are not a fixed point, but a process emerging from interactions with the world, others, and your own inner contrasts. This fluid self is neither lost nor diminished, but free to evolve beyond rigid definitions. Neuroscience reveals that the brain constantly compares stimuli, detecting difference to create meaning. Without contrast, perception collapses. The world becomes a uniform blur. Your mind depends on distinctions to form concepts, memories, and awareness. In this light, contrast is not an obstacle but the very foundation of consciousness. Yet, despite this flux, many report a sense of an unchanging presence beneath experience, a silent witness that observes without judgment, without change. This presence is not caught in the play of opposites, but holds the stage on which they unfold. It is the space between notes, the canvas behind the painting, the stillness within movement. Can you sense this presence now? It is not an object of thought, but a feeling of being. Pure awareness that does not depend on contrast. It is the ground on which light and shadow dance, the silent heart beating beneath every pulse of experience. This realization offers profound peace. Because if you are not only the sum of your contrasts, but the space that embraces them, then your core is limitless, beyond fluctuation. You are not fragmented by opposing forces, but unified in the awareness that holds them. In practical life, this means embracing contrast without losing yourself in it. You can feel joy and pain, light and darkness, without mistaking them for the whole of who you are. You can witness your emotions as passing phenomena, knowing that the self beneath them remains untouched. This perspective invites compassion for yourself and others, recognizing that pain and joy are part of the shared human journey, woven together in the fabric of contrast. It invites curiosity about your own inner landscape, the interplay of opposites that shape your identity. So, next time you encounter hardship or delight, remember, these are the brushstrokes on the canvas of your life, painting the rich tapestry of experience. And at the center of it all, beyond contrast, lies a presence steady and true, the core that is not defined by opposites, but by the vast openness that holds them. This is the paradox and the beauty of being. No experience without contrast, yet at a core beyond it all. You are both the river flowing between light and shadow, and the still water beneath that reflects the endless sky. And in this knowing, you find yourself, whole, undivided, and free. Truth disintegrates upon touch. Truth is the cornerstone of human understanding. It is the shining beacon we seek in the vast darkness of uncertainty. From childhood, we are taught to value truth, to find facts, to hold on to reality, to build knowledge upon unshakable foundations. Yet, the closer we approach what we think is absolute truth, the more it seems to fracture, disintegrate, and dissolve into fragments. This paradox begs the question, was truth ever real? Or is it simply a chase, an endless pursuit of something that forever slips through our fingers? Philosophers have grappled with the nature of truth for millennia. The classical notion is that truth corresponds to reality, that a statement is true if it accurately reflects the way things are. But what if reality itself is layered, complex, and resistant to simple definition? What if truth, rather than a fixed point, is more like a fractal, infinitely complex, revealing new patterns the closer you look? Science, the modern custodian of truth, illustrates this beautifully. Each discovery opens doors to deeper questions. Newton's laws seemed absolute until Einstein's relativity expanded and altered our understanding. Quantum mechanics shattered classical notions of certainty, introducing probabilistic realities where certainty dissolves. In mathematics, Gödel's incompleteness theorems show that within any system, there are truths that cannot be proven from the system itself. truth escapes containment. Language itself betrays us. Words, symbols, and definitions are imperfect vessels for conveying truth. Meaning shifts with context, culture, and perception. What is true for one moment or one mind may not hold in another. Even our senses deceive us. Optical illusions, cognitive biases, and hallucinations remind us that perception is a construction, not a transparent window. The quest for absolute truth is also a deeply human endeavor fueled by desire for certainty and control. We crave answers to anchor us, to provide meaning and security. But this quest can become a trap. The more we insist on fixity, the more truth eludes us, like a mirage that disappears as we approach. Consider the paradox in the realm of ethics and morality. Societies seek universal truths, what is right and wrong, just and unjust. Yet moral codes vary across cultures and epochs, reflecting evolving values rather than immutable laws. The pursuit of moral truth is a dance between ideals and human imperfection, a quest that shapes us as much as it defines us. This fracturing of truth can feel disorienting or even nihilistic. If nothing is absolutely true, then what can we trust? The answer may lie not in clinging to fixed truths, but in embracing the journey of inquiry itself. Truth as a process, dynamic, evolving, and dialogical, invites humility, openness, and curiosity. In art, literature, and spirituality, this acceptance of fragmented truth leads to profound insight. Truth is seen not as an object to be captured, but as a horizon to approach, ever receding, urging us forward. It is in the striving, the questioning, the wrestling with ambiguity that meaning emerges. Some traditions speak of neti neti, not this, not that, pointing to the impossibility of naming ultimate reality. The mystic's path involves letting go of certainty to experience truth beyond words and concepts. In this letting go, truth reveals itself not as a thing, but as a presence, a living mystery. In our daily lives, this perspective can liberate us from rigid dogmas and fearful clinging. It encourages a fluidity of thought, a willingness to revise beliefs, and a compassion for the unknown. Truth becomes less a prize and more a companion on the path of existence. So was truth ever real, or just a chase? Perhaps the real truth is that truth itself is not a final destination, but an unfolding story, a dance of light and shadow, clarity and doubt, presence and absence. The splintering is not destruction, but transformation, a fracturing that reveals infinite facets of the whole. As you contemplate the elusive nature of truth, remember that in the very act of seeking, you participate in something timeless and profound. Truth disintegrates upon touch, yes, but in its shards lies a dazzling spectrum of meaning, waiting for those brave enough to look deeper. You can't escape yourself. No matter how far you run, no matter how drastically you change your life, the job you do, the face you wear, the country you call home, there is one constant companion you cannot leave behind. You, the self that travels with you through every shift, every reinvention, every escape attempt. But what exactly is this self? If it isn't fixed, isn't permanent, then who is it that journeys through these changes? Who is the traveler if the traveler keeps changing? At first glance, the self feels solid. You recognize yourself in the mirror. You remember your past. You carry a continuous thread of experience. Yet, peel back the layers and you find that what you call you is fluid, shaped by memories, emotions, beliefs, and physical change. Your thoughts and feelings flicker like a flame, never still. Even your personality shifts subtly with time, circumstances, and growth. Consider the people who have completely reinvented themselves. A refugee fleeing their homeland, arriving in a foreign land with a new name, a new language, new customs. Are they still the same person they were before? Or a person who changes careers completely, leaves behind one identity to adopt another, artist to engineer, soldier to teacher. Yet even in these radical transformations, the I that experiences the change remains. Who is this I? Philosophers have long debated the nature of the self. Some say the self is an illusion, a narrative the brain weaves to make sense of scattered sensations and memories. The Buddhist concept of anatta, or no self, teaches that what we think of as I is a temporary aggregation of ever-changing parts. So, if there is no fixed self, then the traveler is a process, not a thing. Neuroscience echoes this view. The brain continuously rewires itself. shedding old connections, forming new ones. Your body replaces cells constantly. Your memories can be altered, forgotten, or fabricated. Yet, consciousness, the continuous flow of awareness, persists, like a river flowing, never the same water twice. The traveler is the river itself, always moving, always changing, but still recognizable. This fluid self challenges the idea of escape. If you cannot leave yourself behind, then every attempt to flee external circumstances is also a journey inward. Changing location or appearance does not erase the you who feels, fears, hopes, and suffers. The real voyage is the confrontation with yourself, the acceptance, understanding, or transformation of that inner companion. At times, this realization is unsettling. Who am I if I am not fixed? What stability can I find if the self is a shifting pattern? Yet, this impermanence is also a source of freedom. If the self is not chained to a single identity, then reinvention is always possible. You are both traveler and journey, changing but continuous. Stories from history show this tension. Think of the countless exiles, nomads, and wanderers who have uprooted themselves physically only to discover that the hardest terrain to cross is within. Some seek to bury old selves beneath new skins, but the shadows of identity follow. Others embrace the fluidity, finding peace in the flow rather than the form. Psychologically, this reflects in how we cope with trauma, loss, and growth. Healing often means reassembling the self in new ways, integrating fragments of past and present into a renewed sense of being. The traveler is resilient, adapting to new landscapes, both external and internal. So when you ask, who travels? The answer may be a dance between permanence and change, a self that is both ever-shifting and continuously present. It is the observer of change, the witness to transformation, the echo of experience. No matter where you go, you carry this traveling self, a kaleidoscope of memories, emotions, thoughts, and awareness. You cannot escape yourself because you are the journey and the traveler intertwined. And in embracing this paradox lies the path to true freedom, not fleeing who you are, but flowing with the ever-changing current of your being. The avatar control illusion. If you can control your online avatar but not your subconscious urges, who's controlling the avatar of you? This question exposes a profound disconnect between the parts of ourselves we consciously manage and those that operate beneath our awareness, shaping our behavior and identity in ways we seldom realize. In the digital world, you craft your avatar deliberately, choosing appearance, actions, and expressions. But in real life, the avatar you present, your outward self, is entangled with hidden forces, subconscious drives, impulses, fears, and desires that steer your actions even when you think you're in control. Your online avatar is a symbol of control, a curated representation you actively shape and edit. You decide how it looks, moves, and interacts, often projecting an idealized or carefully filtered self. This creation feels deliberate, a mastery over image and identity. You can pause, reflect, and adjust it before others see it. It is a domain where conscious will reigns supreme. But beyond this digital mask lies the complexity of the subconscious mind, where deep-seated urges and patterns dwell. These urges are shaped by biology, past experiences, emotions, and unconscious conditioning. They influence how you feel, what you want, and how you behave in ways that bypass rational thought. Sometimes they push you toward choices that contradict your conscious goals or values. This dichotomy reveals the avatar control illusion, the belief that because we can control one aspect of ourselves, namely the conscious, deliberate persona, we control the entirety of who we are. Yet, much of what drives us remains invisible and ungoverned by conscious intention. Neuroscience supports this divide. Studies show that many decisions originate unconsciously, with the brain initiating actions before we become aware of deciding. Emotions and habits influence choices before the rational mind weighs in. Our subconscious is a powerful director behind the scenes, steering the show while the conscious mind believes it holds the reins. This raises the unsettling question. If you are not fully in control of your own urges, then who or what controls the avatar of you, the self you present to the world? Is the you online a puppet, manipulated by hidden forces beyond your awareness? Are your conscious choices mere surface ripples atop a deeper current of subconscious impulses? This gap between conscious control and subconscious influence challenges traditional notions of free will and self-mastery. It suggests that identity is layered. The visible, controlled self is just the tip of the iceberg, while beneath lies a vast realm of unseen motivations and conflicts. Yet awareness of this illusion is itself a form of empowerment. Recognizing the subconscious's role opens the door to greater self-understanding and potential integration. Practices like mindfulness, therapy, and self-reflection can illuminate hidden urges and bring them into conscious awareness, narrowing the control gap. In the digital age, where avatars proliferate and identities are crafted and recrafted, this question becomes even more urgent. The avatar you control online may be polished and precise, but the real you is a complex interplay of conscious choice and subconscious currents. So, who controls the avatar of you? The answer is layered and paradoxical. You have control over certain aspects, your online persona, your deliberate actions. But the deeper self is shaped by unconscious forces that defy simple control. The avatar control illusion is the belief in total command, a comforting narrative that masks the complexity beneath. Understanding this truth invites humility and curiosity. It encourages you to look beyond the surface, to explore the hidden depths of your mind, and to embrace the interplay between control and surrender. In doing so, you begin to navigate the delicate dance between the conscious avatar and the subconscious self, a journey toward wholeness in a fragmented world. The boundary of self breaks. You breathe air, drink water, absorb information. Each breath you take pulls the world inside you. Each sip connects you to rivers and clouds, and every thought is shaped by the culture, people, and stories surrounding you. But when you pause and ask, "Where do I end and the world begin?" the answer slips through your fingers like mist. The boundary of self is not a solid line drawn in sand, but a fluid, permeable membrane, constantly shifting, blending, dissolving. From the moment you were born, your body and mind are in constant exchange with the world. Oxygen flows in, carbon dioxide flows out. Nutrients feed your cells, and waste leaves them. Your skin, though it seems a boundary, is porous. Tiny microbes, viruses, and particles cross in and out every day. Your senses reach outward, gathering sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures. Weaving the external world into the fabric of your experience, information floods your brain in streams, language, images, emotions from others, shaping thoughts and feelings. Your memories are partly your own, and partly the echoes of conversations, books, media, and history. You are a node in an immense network, connected and entangled beyond what you can see. Philosophers have long debated the self's boundary. The ancient idea of a discrete, separate I has been challenged by thinkers who see identity as relational, extended, and dynamic. The self is not a fortress, but a threshold, open to flows and changes, responding and adapting to the environment. Consider the metaphor of a river. Water flows in and out. The river's shape changes with the landscape, seasons, and weather. Yet, we still call it the river. The self works similarly. It's a process, a momentary pattern in flux, maintained by ongoing interaction with the world. Without the world's input, air, water, light, sound, the self cannot exist as we know it. Even in technology, this boundary blurs. Smartphones, social media, and the internet extend our minds and selves into vast digital realms. Our identities are partially crafted through these networks, shifting the line between internal and external further than ever before. In neuroscience, the concept of the extended mind suggests that tools, environment, and social connections become part of our cognitive system. The self includes not just the brain, but the things we use to think and remember. So, where do you end and the world begin? Perhaps the question is flawed, for you and the world are entwined, co-creating each other in a continuous dance. The boundary is not a line but a wave, not a wall but a horizon. It breaks and reforms with every breath, every thought, every connection. Embracing this fluid boundary can shift how we see ourselves and others. It fosters empathy, reminding us that we are not isolated islands, but interconnected currents. It reveals the self as both unique and shared, a story written with the world as much as within. In this light, the self is less a fixed container and more a living process, an ongoing dialogue between inside and outside, a dance where boundaries dissolve and re-emerge. The I is both you and the world flowing through you. And so, as you breathe in the air and drink the water, remember, you are both separate and whole, beginning and end, self and world, a mystery wrapped in the seamless fabric of existence. The memory you didn't make. Memory is often thought of as a personal archive, a storehouse of moments you have lived, breathed, and experienced firsthand. But what if much of what you remember was never truly yours? What if some memories are stories told to you so many times, repeated with such conviction, that they become indistinguishable from your own lived reality? And if you didn't actually live them, why do these inherited memories come to define you, shape your identity, and influence your decisions? This phenomenon is more common than you might realize. From childhood, we absorb narratives told by parents, relatives, and culture. Tales of family triumphs, tragedies, fears, and triumphs. Stories of who we are, where we came from, and what to expect in life. These narratives weave into the fabric of memory, blurring the lines between personal experience and collective lore. Psychologists call this phenomenon source amnesia, where people remember information but forget where or how they learned it. The result is memories that feel vivid, authentic, and intimate, yet originate externally. Over time, repeated telling embeds these stories deep in the subconscious, causing you to accept them as your own. Consider this. You might recall a childhood event, a birthday party, a family trip, a moment of conflict that you did not actually witness or experience directly. Instead, you absorbed it through photographs, conversations, or retellings so frequently that the memory seems yours. You feel emotions attached to it, like nostalgia or regret, even though it never truly happened to you. This raises unsettling questions. If part of your identity rests on memories you didn't create, how much of you is constructed from inherited stories? If your mind stitches together a self from a patchwork of borrowed recollections, where does authentic selfhood begin? The concept extends beyond individual memory. Collective memory, the shared stories of communities, nations, and cultures, also shapes identity. Myths, histories, and cultural narratives form a framework within which personal memories reside. These stories are passed down like heirlooms, cherished, but sometimes distorted. They influence beliefs, biases, fears, and hopes, becoming part of the invisible architecture of the mind. Even neuroscience shows that memory is reconstructive, not reproductive. Each time you recall a memory, you rebuild it, sometimes altering details, emotions, or context. Memories are fragile, mutable, and influenced by suggestion. The memory you didn't make can grow and evolve in your mind until it feels as real as any first-hand experience. But why does this matter? Because your memories influence how you see the world, how you relate to others, and how you predict the future. They shape your sense of self, your personality, values, and decisions. When these memories are borrowed, it means your identity is, at least in part, a mosaic of others' perceptions and stories. This insight invites humility and curiosity. It urges you to examine the origins of your memories, to question which are truly your own and which have been passed down or implanted. It encourages awareness that memory is a shared, dynamic process, not a fixed ledger. Moreover, it offers liberation. Recognizing that not all memories belong to you opens space to rewrite your story, to choose which narratives to carry forward and which to release. It allows you to reclaim your identity from the shadows of inherited tales and to create new memories grounded in your own experience. This also sheds light on the power of storytelling. Stories shape who we are. They build bridges across generations and cultures, but they can also trap us in cycles of belief and behavior that are not authentically ours. Awareness of this dynamic empowers you to be a conscious author of your own life story. In relationships, understanding the memory you didn't make can foster empathy. Recognizing that others' memories and narratives might differ or be constructed similarly can soften judgments and open dialogue. We are all shaped by stories, some ours, some borrowed, and the boundaries between them are porous. So, the next time a memory stirs something deep within, ask yourself, did I live this moment, or was it handed down, repeated until it feels real? Can I trace its origins? And what does this mean for who I am today? You are a tapestry woven from countless threads, some spun from your own experiences, others from stories passed down through time. The memory you didn't make is part of that weave, but it does not define the whole fabric. Beneath these layers lies the possibility of authentic self-discovery, grounded in the here and now. In embracing this, you find freedom, not in rejecting memory, but in discerning its nature. You become both witness and creator, honoring the stories that serve you and releasing those that confine you. Memory is not just a record of the past, it is the living ground of identity, forever unfolding, shifting, and remaking itself. And within that flow, you find the power to become who you truly are. Perception creates belief filters. You like to think that what you see, hear, and feel is the world as it truly is. Objective, unfiltered, a direct window onto reality. But what if that window is tinted, cracked, and shaped by forces invisible to you? What if your perception is not a neutral recording, but a crafted vision painted by the lens of your beliefs? From the moment you wake, your brain is working not just to receive information, but to interpret it, to filter it, to make sense of it. This process is not passive, it is active and selective. Your beliefs, those deep-rooted ideas about who you are, how the world works, what to expect, act as filters. They determine what you notice, what you ignore, what you accept as true or false. Imagine walking into a crowded room. Two people witness the same scene, yet each walks away with entirely different memories. One sees hostility, the other sees kindness. One notices the smiles, the other the frowns. Their beliefs shape the story they tell themselves about that moment. This isn't just imagination, it's cognitive reality. Psychologists call this phenomenon confirmation bias. We seek and interpret information in ways that confirm what we already believe, reinforcing our worldview. Our minds protect us from discomfort by filtering out contradictions, sometimes at the cost of truth. So, who is really painting your vision? It's not just your eyes or ears, but the invisible artist of belief working behind the scenes. This filtering extends beyond individuals. Cultures, societies, and even entire nations share collective beliefs that color their perception of history, morality, and identity. Two people from different cultures may witness the same event, yet interpret it in completely opposite ways. The world itself becomes multiple worlds, layered with meaning and conflict born from differing lenses. Neuroscience reveals that perception is a construction of the brain. Sensory data enters raw and unformed. The brain assembles it into coherent images, sounds, and feelings based on expectations and prior knowledge. What you perceive is not the world out there, but a model your brain creates. This model is built and maintained by beliefs. This realization is both empowering and unsettling. It means your reality is, in part, a story you tell yourself. Change your beliefs, and you can change your perception. But it also means that two people can live in very different realities while occupying the same physical space. Consider the implications for empathy and conflict. When we recognize that others see through different filters, we open the door to understanding and dialogue. We begin to question the certainty of our own vision and the judgments we make based on it. Yet, this awareness also demands vigilance. Belief filters can distort reality, trapping us in echo chambers and illusions. The challenge is to cultivate awareness of these filters, to seek out perspectives beyond our own, and to remain curious rather than certain. In the realm of personal growth, this means examining your own beliefs and how they shape your experience. Which beliefs limit you? Which empower you? By consciously reshaping your belief filters, you can broaden your vision, see new possibilities, and transform your relationship with the world. At the heart of this lies a profound paradox. You don't see the world as it is. You see it through the lens of your beliefs. Yet, those very beliefs are part of who you are, inseparable from your identity. The painter and the painting are entwined in an endless dance. So, who's really painting your vision? It's a co-creation between your mind, your history, your culture, and the world itself. A dynamic interplay where perception and belief shape each other continuously. As you move through life, consider this interplay carefully. Question what colors your lens, be mindful of the filters you wear, and remain open to the possibility that your vision can change. Because in the shifting hues of belief and perception lies the power to transform not just how you see the world, but how the world reveals itself to you. Time wasn't ever linear. Time. We think of it as a steady river, flowing endlessly from past to future, marching in one direction, measured by clocks and calendars. But ask yourself, has time ever truly felt linear? Have you not experienced moments when seconds stretch like hours, when a single instant feels infinite, or days that vanish in a blink? If the passage of time bends with your perception, then what is time really? Is it a fixed reality, or merely a mood? Our everyday life insists that time is constant. Seconds tick by uniformly. Sunrise follows sunset. Seasons cycle predictably. Physics even describes time as the fourth dimension, woven into the fabric of the universe. Yet, subjective experience tells a different story. Time dilates and contracts in the theater of consciousness, governed not by clocks, but by attention, emotion, and memory. Think back to your most intense moments: joy, terror, grief. When you were truly present, did time speed up or slow down? The classic example is near-death experiences, where seconds expand into eternities and every detail seems magnified. The brain, overwhelmed by adrenaline, floods memory circuits, creating the illusion of slowed time. In contrast, boredom or routine can make hours evaporate unnoticed. Psychologists call this the psychological time, an elastic sense of duration shaped by awareness and emotion. When the mind is absorbed, time contracts. When restless or anxious, time stretches endlessly. This suggests time is not an external, objective flow, but a mental construct, a mood shaped by inner states. Even memory distorts time. When recalling past events, some feel recent, vivid, while others fade into distant blur. The mind rearranges and edits the timeline of experience, weaving narratives that may not align with chronological order. Thus, your personal timeline is less a straight line than a tangled web. Physics adds even more complexity. Einstein's theory of relativity reveals that time is relative, not absolute. It can slow near massive objects, speed up when moving fast. Time bends with gravity and velocity, showing that the universe itself doesn't tick uniformly. This scientific fact mirrors subjective experience. Time is malleable, contextual. Philosophers have long debated whether time exists independently of consciousness. Does the universe possess time if no mind perceives it? Some argue time is emergent, born from change and observation, rather than a pre-existing dimension. Others suggest time may be an illusion, a story we tell to organize experience. This challenges our deepest assumptions. If time is a mood, a perception, then what anchors us in reality? How do we navigate a world where yesterday can feel like today and a moment can stretch into infinity? The answer may lie in embracing the fluidity of time, recognizing that your lived experience is primary and clocks are mere tools. Our cultures have long reflected this ambivalence. Ancient traditions speak of cyclical time, seasons, rebirth, eternal return, contrasting with the Western linear narrative. Poetry, music, and art capture time's flux, its rhythms and pauses, its leaps and fades. They remind us that time is as much felt as measured. In your own life, notice how your mood colors time. Joy rushes past, sorrow drags on. Waiting stretches minutes to agony. Laughter compresses hours to seconds. Time is not a rigid ruler, but a dance partner, moving with your inner rhythms. This realization offers freedom. You are not bound by clocks or calendars, but by your awareness. Mindfulness and presence become tools to reshape your experience of time, stretching moments of beauty, softening moments of pain. So, if time is a mood, a perception, a flow shaped by consciousness, then it is not less real but differently real. It exists in the interplay between outer reality and inner experience. Time was never just linear. It is layered, elastic, and deeply human. Next time you feel a moment stretch or shrink, remember, you are not a passive observer of time, but an active participant in its unfolding. Time isn't just a measurement, it's a mood, a feeling, a reality you create. You die in every choice. You die in every choice you don't make. Each path left unexplored is a version of yourself that never breathed life, a possibility extinguished before it began. This haunting truth challenges the very notion of what it means to be real. If every decision spawns countless selves that fade away, then are you the authentic self, or merely the ghost that survived the collapse of infinite possibilities? Imagine standing at a crossroads. To your left, one path leads to a life of quiet stability. To your right, a journey of wild adventure. When you choose one, the other doesn't just vanish externally. It ceases internally. A self born to walk, that road is forever lost. Those unchosen selves are like shadows, real in potential but never actualized. Philosophers have long wrestled with this paradox. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics even suggests that all choices branch off into parallel realities, where each version of you lives out a different fate. But from your conscious perspective, you inhabit only one thread, a single narrative line carved from infinite possibilities. This means that you are both a survivor and a casualty, a living remnant of all the selves that didn't come to be. The self that exists is defined as much by what was forsaken as by what was embraced. Identity is woven from a tapestry of lives unlived, dreams deferred, and choices abandoned. This idea can be both terrifying and liberating. It confronts the illusion of permanence and singularity, revealing that the self is fluid, fragmented, and contingent. You are not a fixed entity, but a selection, a survivor shaped by the choices that allowed you to endure. At the same time, it invites profound acceptance. Each choice closes doors, but opens others. The ghosts of lost selves need not haunt you with regret. They are silent witnesses to the paths that made your existence possible. Your reality is a mosaic of these convergences and divergences. In literature and art, this theme echoes through stories of alternate lives, missed chances, and what-ifs. Characters grapple with the weight of paths not taken, confronting the ephemeral nature of selfhood. Ultimately, the question, are you real or just the ghost that survived, dissolves into a deeper understanding. Reality is not singular but layered, composed of the selves you have been and those you might have been. Your existence is a testament to choice, loss, and endurance, a living echo of infinite possibilities. So, embrace the paradox. You are real because you are here, now, the conscious thread weaving through countless unrealized lives. The ghost that survived is the self that lives, breathes, and becomes, always carrying the silent memory of the selves that never were. The witness that never speaks. Inside the depths of your consciousness, beyond the swirl of thoughts, emotions, and sensations, there exists a silent observer, something that watches without judgment, without interruption, without voice. It never speaks, never comments or reacts, yet it remains constant. No name adorns it, no face defines it, and it cannot be grasped by any memory or concept. And yet, paradoxically, it is the most you thing you've ever known. This silent watcher is often called the witness, the pure awareness behind everything you experience. While your mind chases ideas and feelings, this witness simply holds the space, calmly and steadily, like the sky holding clouds drifting by. It doesn't judge the clouds as good or bad. It merely watches their passing without attachment. This witness is the foundation beneath the fluctuating stories of self. When you identify with your thoughts or emotions, you become lost in the drama of me and mine. But when you turn your attention to the watcher itself, you step outside the flood of mental noise and glimpse something vast, still, and untouched. Philosophers and mystics across cultures have pointed toward this silent observer as the true essence of self. The Vedantic tradition calls it the Sakshi, the witness consciousness that remains unchanged despite the ceaseless flow of life. Buddhism speaks of the pure awareness beyond conceptual mind, the ground from which all experiences arise and to which they return. Neuroscience struggles to capture this phenomenon, but some point to the brain's capacity for meta-awareness, the ability to be aware of awareness itself. This metacognition reveals that the self is not merely the contents of consciousness, but the consciousness that contains those contents. Imagine watching a movie. The screen itself doesn't act or change. It simply shows images that come and go. The witness is like that screen, unchanging, ever-present, allowing the play of life to unfold without interference. Without the screen, there would be no experience. Yet, the screen itself remains untouched by the plot. This silent witness also provides a refuge during turmoil. When emotions rage or thoughts spiral, the witness remains calm and steady, a reminder that beneath the storm lies a silent, unshakable presence. It is the you that cannot be hurt, lost, or defined, the essence that watches all transformations without fading. Yet the witness never speaks. It offers no guidance, no answers, no commands. Its power is in its quiet presence, the simple act of witnessing without interference. It invites you to rest in pure awareness, beyond the chatter of mind and the pull of identity. To experience the witness is to glimpse the self beyond self, the stillness behind movement, the silence beneath sound, the light beyond form. It is a doorway into the mystery of being, where the I dissolves into boundless awareness. So when you ask, "Who am I?" listen not for words or images, but for the silent watcher inside, the witness that never speaks but always knows. In its quiet gaze, you find the deepest truth of yourself, a presence without shape or story, yet more intimately you than anything else.